brain is creating your reality, but your brain is not trustworthy. And so for me, the rule is don't trust your brain.
How much of the things that we are told about food and medicine are a lie or wrong?
Most of it. I'm going to punch through all the noise, but then we're going to put all the science into me. It's kind of insane as an intelligent species that we would willingly do things that would shorten our life or cause death.
He has this wild lab that's like in his house. And so you'll see on the interwebs that I played around with it, there's one that you sit on and it's it tightens your pelvic floor and your rectum.
Oh
and so
my God.
You sit on this stool.
Bryan Johnson is just not the same as everyone else. He was severely depressed when he founded, scaled, and then eventually sold a company where he pocketed about $300 million. He created a helmet that tracks his brain waves and actually how old his brain is. And that isn't even actually the craziest part about this guy. He created an entire anti-aging protocol that runs his life according to the algorithms that he and his doctors have determined. He actually doesn't care about how anyone now or at all sees him. He actually only cares about the future. And in fact, he shares just about all of this on the internet, even how he's thinking about sex and all the things that he is going to measure from them. But every time he shares something about his sexual routine or how he injected Botox into his penis, somebody responds with something like this. Yeah, but have you had sex lately? So I first got connected with him when I said, well, first they'll laugh, then they call you crazy, and then they ask you how you did it. And we started DMing back and forth. And what Bryan said to me resounded, that discipline is freedom and freedom is superior to enslavement by pleasure. That actually is the happiest that he's ever been. So after all of his commercial success, he actually started another company, which was a $100 million fund to invest in things to progress the ability for humans to never die, or as he says, don't die. And then founded Kernel, this helmet that he has here that allows him to measure his brain waves and how old it is. What's fascinating is his routine that he talks about. 11 pills every day, wearing a baseball cap that shoots red light into his scalp, collecting his own stool samples and monitoring nighttime erections. He even gets his family involved, with his son at one point transferring his blood into his father to see if he could live longer, and doing the same thing to his dad and actually lowering his dad's biological age. But I'm not sure any of that is actually the most interesting part about Bryan. The most interesting part about Bryan is why he's doing all of this and what you and I can learn from it. And so if you right now are thinking about, how do I change my life? It's not the tactics that you're going to get here. It is the mental frameworks that will allow you to do whatever tactics you want to change your life. This is Bryan Johnson, the man who thinks that you do not actually have to die.
Bring the band in. Let's go.
Do you have a personal grandest ambition that is the most important to you? And is it living forever, or is it more than that?
I guess I like mapping history and looking at a different era on how they mapped out ambition. And then if you take 2024 and you pose the question, what is the most ambitious undertaking that our species could undertake, what would it be?
And do you think the answer is to live forever, at least in this moment? Or to live longer? That's
the 0th step is, don't die is the most played game by every human, by every living being, every animal, every plant, every human. It's don't die every second of every day. And so it's played more than capitalism. It's played more than religion. It is the most played game. And then above don't die, then we choose whether we want to make money or be adherents to religions, or whether we want to do our various things. But it's all premised on don't die.
Do you think that you're attracted to it because it is the most played game, which means that you have the most competition, which means it might be the hardest game?
No, I think it's interesting because my education is primarily from biographies. And I like reading throughout history and looking at a person in their time and place, and they identified something impossibly hard to do. And then they're able to see the thing and then do it. And at the time, people thought they were crazy or that they were unintelligible to that time and place. But then their thing became inevitable and normalized, and we just forget that it was ever crazy in the first place. And so if you take that notion and you apply it right now, then if you say, what is the most ambitious, craziest thing we can imagine as a species? And one is don't die, but two is, how big is consciousness? We know what it feels like to learn and to crawl and walk and run and to fall in love and to have heartbreak. And we have these certain things we know. But just like if you pose this question a few hundred years ago, how big is reality? you would have gotten an answer that would have dramatically underestimated the size of the microscopic world, the size of the universe. We're living in the fraction of what real reality exists. And so I wonder if the same question could be applied to our consciousness. How big is our conscious capabilities? Are we living in a fraction of its ability? And as we start applying tools of artificial intelligence and biological engineering and add new chemical interactions, could we be on the verge of this opening up a frontier of experience we can't imagine?
Do you think that a lot of people don't ponder questions like this because they never achieved post-economic success? And so the fact that you sold the company for $800 million, achieved what most people, that would be the most interesting thing about them, would be that. And I think a lot of people think, when I hit X, I will be Y, which is happy, fulfilled, whatever. And so you hit that and then went on to this next thing. Do you think you would still be asking these questions if you hadn't been post-economic or really rich, in other words?
Yeah, I mean, it's the game I've wanted to play since I was 21. So I made the goal. When I was 21, I told everyone I was going to do something that would change the course of humanity. I mean, I'm 21, I'm naive. Like, what do I know? And like, that's ridiculous to say as a 21-year-old. Like, how's that even? But that's just what I cared about. And it's what I wanted to do. And I didn't know what to do. So I said, I'm going to make money first. And then with money, go out and try to figure out what to do. So it's been something I've been working on explicitly for 25 years.
I have this other mentor that I've had for a few years now, Bill Perkins, Die with Zero.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I think one of the most impactful things you can do as a young person is get around people who make your brain sort of expand to a point of discomfort. My thinking is so much smaller than yours. And for most people, they're barely getting by. Yeah. When somebody tells them that they could even achieve a millionaire status, or they could be free, or they could have a six-pack, that almost seems like too far. Mm-hmm. Was there some moment where your brain flipped like that you remember?
It was when I was living in Ecuador in extreme poverty. Came back to the US and reality had just changed for me.
And why?
I mean, after being among them, nothing mattered to me except the contribution I could make to the species. I didn't care about making money for money's sake. I didn't have aspirations of buying a big home or an expensive car. I just wanted to improve people's lives. It was just this burning desire. It lit and it's never gone out. It's just gotten stronger. And it honestly feels like it drives me. Like even when I don't, it's still there and it pushes me past my own comfort. It's an undescribable relationship of like what is happening inside of me and then how does that manifest with what I'm actually doing.
So if you were going to try to replicate that experience for somebody else and to make them think bigger than they could even imagine, and maybe get on a health journey similar to yours, are there words of wisdom that you would give somebody to try to kickstart an Ecuador in their mind?
Yeah, I do this with my 18-year-old, my son. To his credit, he is attentive, he's curious, and he's willing to listen. And he's trying to figure out what game does he play in life. Because he's wise in that he's listened that you're born into games in society. Like you're born as an American, you're born into capitalism, you're born into like all these norms, and then we learn them and they become invisible. So we don't realize we're actually in games we didn't choose to play. We're just playing it. And then we try to become number one, if you're competitive in one of those different tracks. And so what I've tried to suggest to him is don't assume that any game being played in society is your game. Extract yourself, evaluate them for what they are. I guess I would summarize that and say, don't try to be number one, try to be zero. And number one is like you're going for a rank. In a given game, you're trying to beat other players. A zero is, this is like a different concept, zero is principle thinking. You're trying to come up with a new idea, a new game to play. And so I guess the advice would be, try not to feel overpowered by societal expectations of what they want you to play.
So in frame, if you were in front of somebody, who was unhappy in some way, shape, or form in their life, or maybe even happy but really striving, how do you break the frame? Do you do they first have to sit and even go, okay, well, here's one game I'm playing, which is I'm in finance. Why are you in finance? Here's one game I'm playing. I'm dating somebody. Do you want to be dating somebody? What does dating mean? Like, how do you put that into practice?
Okay, so let's start with the most basic thing. We all have thoughts. I learned this when I was depressed, that I would have thoughts that would say, Bryan, life is not worth living, and you might want to kill yourself. In fact, you really do want to kill yourself. In fact, that's the only thing that gives you pleasure, is the ideation of killing yourself. So in that moment, when I learned that I am not my thoughts, that my brain was generating these observations and suggestions and even statements, that I could observe them and say, thank you, brain, for making that observation. I know that you're not me, so I'm not going to act on that, or am I going to acknowledge that as truth? And so you are not your thoughts. And so in any situation, because your brain is creating your reality, and if you just accept them when they land, then you're going to play the game your brain tells you, but your brain is not trustworthy. Absolutely not trustworthy. And so I know with my thoughts, in any given situation, I will disregard the first 5 or 6 thoughts I have on anything, because I know my brain's like just trying to situate itself. And even then, it's going to have critical errors of biases and all kinds of assumptions. And so that's the very first game. And so because if you're walking into dating or career selection or something, if you can't catch the first layer, which is your mind is creating this false reality for you, then you'll be stuck downstream from that.
What about the hippy dippies in Austin where I'm located who say, but just listen to your gut. Your first reaction is right.
Yeah.
How do you push back on that, or do you?
It's a bit of a too simplistic of a rule to universalize. That is not to say that intuitions are not valuable. Like your body's legit doing computation, doing pattern matching. And you're probably able to generate wisdom that your conscious mind can't. And so it's not that it's not good, it's just that it's a data point among a larger set of data points. And some people I think will encourage that go with your first decision and then don't look back. Others will say, be more mindful. It's probably individual, but there's not a clean answer because people are trying to simplify the complexity of life. And they're trying to say, like, here's a rule. And so for me, the rule is don't trust your brain. And then, of course, if someone says, okay, how do I not trust my brain? That just made things worse for me. Like, now it's really problematic. But it invites you to start a new game. So, for example, if you learn that we each have 188 proven cognitive biases. They're shortcuts our mind makes to try to make sense of a really messy reality. And so your brain is always making these shortcuts to help you make sense. But then the trade-off is like it may not be as accurate. It's like confirmation bias. If I'm trying to find something what I really believe about a new concept, I'm going to find information. If it confirms what I want to believe, yep, I accept it. And if I find information that challenges my belief systems, I'm going to reject it. And so just being aware of that. And to me, that's been the single most valuable practice I've ever maintained, is knowing that I cannot trust my own mind. Because once you start from there, then you can't trust others. You can't trust institutions. So who can you trust? And that then that starts the game of like how to build the life you want to build. Because otherwise, you're going to probably be disappointed in the process of trusting other forms of authority.
It's so good. You know, I think what's interesting is you're obviously very smart. You sold a company for hundreds of millions of dollars. You've had a lot of traditional success, as we would define it in today's day and age. And what else I think is interesting is usually when that happens, people then have a lot of opinions and maybe they go out in the world and they try to assert those opinions on others. But you've actually done something very different. You've said, I am going to turn myself into a singular action of my opinions at this current stage. I'm not going to try to assert it on others. I'm going to assert it on myself with like second or third order effects on that are only really applicable to you. And one, I think that's really rare. You have questioned pretty much all medical institutions, maybe even food institutions across the US. And so I was curious, since you are a living embodiment of, watch what I do, not what I say, how much of the things that we are told about food and medicine are a lie or wrong?
Most of it.
Really?
Yeah, most of it. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Everyone's trying their best to figure it out. I don't think it's because of malice. I don't think it's because pharma is some kind of evil, group trying to take over the world. they're doing their thing, and everyone is. Doctors are, institutions are. So I don't assign any malice. People legit are trying to figure out the right move. And so that's what I was trying to solve is there's so much confusion around health and wellness. And I wanted to say, I'm going to punch through all the noise. We're going to look at every single scientific study ever published on anti-aging and lifespan. We're going to rank them according to the power laws. And then we're going to put all the science into me, one person, and we're going to measure me as the most measured person in the world. And then we're going to see what we get, like what happens. And then I'll make the whole thing for free for everyone.
Explain what a power law is.
It's where you get 80% of the benefit for 20% of the effort. If I want to be in good health, let's just say I'm not trying to solve an urgent problem, I just want to be in good health, then the list of things you could do are hundreds. Currently, culturally, it's interesting to like cold plunge or sauna or like celery juice or like take your thing. There's hundreds of things that you could do. And we try to say, we're not going to follow fads. We're going to follow scientific evidence. How do you punch through all the noise and say, tell me exactly what to do according to the very best science? I'll do that. And so we don't want to mess around with things that aren't effective. We don't want to do something because it's culturally cool. We want to actually increase lifespan. So we tried to really use science and measurement. We tried to basically make the best health protocol in human history and then make the whole thing available for free for everybody.
What do you think in the next 10 years, to simplify again, we will look back on that we do today and think, oh my God, that's the tobacco of today?
Yeah.
Is there one thing? Are there three? What are they?
Our entire reality. So yeah, this is my prediction is, so just for context setting, let's imagine we travel back in time to 1870 and we can whisper something in their ears. So we say, psst, there are these new ideas about these microscopic objects that cause infection and potentially death. They're called germs. Your eyes can't see them, but they actually exist, and you can do things to stop them, like wash your hands and have other kind of hygienic practices. Now, if you're in the 1870s, you're going to say, that's stupid and that's nuts. If you're open-minded, you may say, okay, tell me more. Now, it turned out germs are real. They actually do cause infection, and there's hygiene practices that help you increase your ability to survive infections. And so if we pull the thought experiment forward and we say, let's say the 25th century can whisper into our ears, what do they say to us?
What do you think they say?
I think they say, you're in the eve before the creation of superintelligence. And the intelligence you're creating is growing at a speed faster than you can comprehend. That renders your ability to predict the future to zero. You cannot see. You're up against a wall of fog. Now, this has been the first time that we have ever had this experience because Homo sapiens have always said, I can look at the past and see how things have been. Yes, there may be discovery like germs or like penicillin or the computer or the internet that may surprise your inability to predict, but generally speaking, the future is somewhat predictable because things change rather slowly and like to some degree of predictability. That's no longer the case. We can make guesses on what we think the true characteristics of intelligence may be, but really we don't know. And so for the first time in the history of Homo sapiens, we are challenged in saying anything about the future, including what we want, what we like, what we dislike, what we prefer, what our ideals are, what our morals are, what our ethics are. We are no longer going to be the authority. Now, people are going to like fall on multiple sides of the spectrum. People will say, we are going to tame AI, we're going to control AI, we're going to build the world we want. I can't imagine a situation where we humans are still the architects of intelligence in some duration of time.
Now, before you were able to have ideas this big that have repercussions for generations, you talked about it there for a minute, but you have been public about being extremely depressed, suicidal, and at your lowest, and building a huge company despite all of that. What changed specifically that you think could be replicable for other people?
Yeah.
Besides the zeroth principle thinking.
It was so easy in retrospect. 10 years, I tried everything to fix my depression. Like you name it, I tried it.
For 10 years?
For 10 years. Wow. And then I did two things that fixed it. I left my church and I got a divorce. And those two changes just made it evaporate. So it was environmental and it was contextual.
So if you were to give advice to, let's say, your kids or the next person, before almost any of the blueprint, is it get your power of place and community right and your person or partner right?
Yeah.
Like, do you think those are even more fundamental than the health aspects?
Yeah, or I'd say if I could speak to myself, I would say, and I was trying to help myself problem solve, I would say, what do you feel paralyzed by? And once you identify that, then what is the strength you feel that this thing has upon you? Like in that moment, leaving my church, my religion, like my existential existence felt unimaginable. And leaving my marriage with my 3 kids, I was like an all-in dad. I worked really hard. And so my identity was so built up into that. So those things felt impossibly hard to break. And so how trapped do you feel and how impossibly hard do they feel to break? And if you can identify those 2 things, you probably can put your finger on the thing that's, potentially responsible. Now, not always. This is for my case, but that definitely was what kickstarted this next phase of my life. And so others are just genuinely in a really bad spot. And for them, I would say, try your very best to get your basics right. Like go to sleep on time, like make sleep your number 1 life priority, do well on your diet and exercise, and just try to get the basics in place as your number 1 life priority. Probably has the most powerful starting point change.
Quick little side note here. Those 2 things hit home like a gut punch. I was married before, got divorced, and my religion used to be finance at a company with a bunch of people who had ethics and morals that weren't aligned with me anymore, but I couldn't figure out why. I used to think that you just felt sick all the time after you ate, and that it was normal to not sleep very much, and that in fact, you could be in a relationship and fight all the time and have issues with alcohol. And then I quickly realized when I got divorced and I got out of that company that that's not normal, or it doesn't need to be your normal. And so despite us going into a bunch of tactics and specifics on how to do this from a health perspective, what resonated with me is, what if the most important thing we do is just who we choose to partner with for life and what we choose to pursue? Whether that pursuit is religion, or that pursuit is our company, or that pursuit is a set of values. If we can get the values and the who right, maybe all the rest can fall into place. Yeah, when I was talking to my husband about interviewing you, he likes to talk back about when I was in finance, and he was like, you looked really different. I had sort of more bags under my eyes. I was taking red eyes nonstop. I really wasn't sleeping very much. I didn't at all value the idea of sleep. And I really didn't eat very thoughtfully. I drank way more than I should have. And so he always likes to remind me that, he's made me younger, which makes me giggle. I think you're right. You had a quote the other day in a newspaper about sleep that I thought was interesting, and about its correlation to sort of death as opposed to progress. I think a lot of entrepreneurs think, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Yeah. You only need 4 hours. Yeah. Let me take a stimulus, get up at 5 a.m. What is your thought on that culture?
Yeah, it's martyrdom culture. And this is, if you want to try to reach sobriety of thought, anyone in life, like you and I right now, could both say 1,000 things about right now. We could talk about the politics. We could talk about world affairs. We could talk about business. Like we could make so many observations about this time and place, the dramas that are happening in the world. So that's a valuable thing to offer insight as it relates to here and now. The other way to think about reality is to say, what does the 25th century observe? And that has this really nice effect of washing away all the noise of this moment. Just like we think of the 15th century, we think 10 things happened during that entire century. Like 99% of what happened is washed away. Like we don't care. We want to know about the big advances that push things forward. And so when you take a question like, what is current culture around sleep and, household culture and things like that, you can try to approach the topic by in the bubble of this moment. But if you seek clarity of thought in the 25th century, and that's when I come back to, the 25th century is going to say, you're about to give birth to superintelligence. None of your silly games matter anymore. You need to re-architect society around this new philosophical structure of don't die. The only objective is that intelligence continues to thrive in this part of the galaxy, but your games of martyrdom are basically a death cult, and you normalize to it and you can't see it.
You've talked about a lot of different ways to decrease your blood pressure to a level of an 18-year-old. So if I kind of zoom out and look overall at people like my father and most people who are struggling with blood pressure, this is very tactical, but what would you say to them? Is the answer just go and get pharmaceutical drugs?
You can use drugs, yes. You can also significantly improve that through diet, sleep, exercise. And usually when these kinds of questions come up, it comes back to the basics. You can do more esoteric, expensive therapies, but I mean, the headline with Blueprint is that it's $2 million a year. It's not. It's like $1,500 a month, which includes your groceries. It's just expensive for me because we measure. It's that quantification, which is so expensive, and the research. Yeah. But the actual doing it is very low cost. And so, yeah, diet, sleep, exercise, what people already know, it's not sexy and it's very hard to do. That's why I think most people just don't do it.
Yeah, and it's hard for companies to make money off of it, which means that the incentive and structure to sell you on it is also not there in the same way there is quicker fixes.
That's right. Yeah. Who's making money when you sleep well?
Yeah, exactly. Not very many people.
I mean, actually, like your employer does. They just don't acknowledge it.
That's true. Yeah, it's much easier to acknowledge the person that stays longer. I'm guilty of this as well, as opposed to what is the actual output level. Yeah. But that's really comes from a society not measuring.
That's right.
And so, why do we like work hustle culture? Because it's very hard as a leader of a company to measure every single employee with a KPI to their ROI to the company. Yeah. It's actually hard. In the same way that why does Blueprint cost $2 million for you? Because you're actually measuring and categorizing everything so that you can verify $1,500 a month is reasonable for somebody else. Right. That would be a better headline that the New York Times would never write about you.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like look back through history. How many times do we look back and do we say like, oh, that culture was so on point? Almost never. We look back and we say like, they're idiots, or like, how do they not see this? Or how primitive, or like we make these really harsh judgments as if we are enlightened creatures and they were these primitive animals, but we're just as silly. We're just blind to it. And so you fast forward a little bit in time, the future is going to see us as silly. And if you can take that humble acknowledgement that that highly unlikely that we've reached the apex of intelligence. And it's most likely that everything we do is just absolutely erroneous in so many ways.
Yeah, you had a tweet that fucked with my mind, candidly, a little bit, which was about money. And it was frugality, saving, investing, planning, discipline, admirable money management. Why is it done? Wealth is immortal. Possibilities of our longevity are shifting. Maybe our thinking will shift too, which made me start realizing, oh, why do we value money? Because we think it lasts beyond us. But we do not believe inherently that health lasts beyond us. Yeah. Ipso facto, we put less value on it. I don't know why, but that really opened up something for me. What else would you say on that?
Yeah, we are a species that craves immortality. We do. We crave it through our children, through money, through legacy. We crave it through accomplishments. And I'm suggesting that true immortality, or don't die, may be the replacement for all these other games we've been playing. That there's a new reality in front of us.
Yeah, you don't have to leave your name Rockefeller on the building of a college campus if you can, in fact, continue forward. You do that because you don't want to be, we all want our life to have meant something, because I do think in a lot of ways, Hobbes is right, like nasty, brutish, and short.
Exactly right.
And so if that is what we believe to be true, then why wouldn't we spend time trying to make it all make sense?
Exactly. And this is why these ideas are so provocative and why they generate so much hate, is that people have these knee-jerk reactions and they're defending all their life choices. Because to realize that you've been playing a game your entire life that is about to change and you may start from zero just like everyone else is a hurtful thought. And so instead of confronting it and being open-minded to it, you want to just bury it like we do with all these things that are uncomfortable. And that's why I think that people can't even, the rage I get directed at me is unhinged. And I don't think people even realize why they're so mad. But it's not about me. It's about their situation, their life decisions. And this is not blaming them. This is just like being human's hard, and confronting new ideas is hard. And I'm trying to point out what I think is going to be obvious in the future when they look at this moment.
Yeah, I want to close out with one last question here, which was, you tweeted about certain acts that we take now today you think of as committing violence against ourselves, which I think is really powerful, because when you assign words like that, then actions can change. Yeah. What do you mean by committing violence against yourself that's different than how most people might? Except for the people these days who say words are violence, in which case none of this is relevant.
Yeah, it was a thought experiment I did, that what would, a century from now, what would they say that society had done to change reality? And so we as a species have been moving towards increasingly less violence across everything. And I was suggesting that a reasonable continuation would be that right now we commit these acts of self-destruction, like we overeat or we drink or we stay up late, we miss our bedtime. And these things increase our chance of death, they increase our speed of aging, and they increase, probability of disease. And it's kind of insane as an intelligent species that we would willingly do things that would shorten our life or cause death. And we justify it. We say, well, we live only once, so live fast, die young. So we have all these really pretty stories and justifications, but they fall short in the context of where the future's at. And so I basically said, I'm going to say any action that I take that increases my speed of aging, I'm going to label as an act of violence, and I'm going to shift it. And so I'm trying to basically model out what is the future of being human, and then I'm trying to live that. If we try to explain the future in like Blade Runner, you go to 2049, you see flying cars, you see droids, but humans are identical. They have the same thought processes, they have the same minds, they have the same tics, they're the same, playing the same games. And they do that because it's the only way to relate a human to another human watching the movie in the early 21st century. And what I'm trying to say is we need models of the future of being human. And I'm trying to show that tangibly so that we can start being the evolution that we imagine.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is, I think a lot of time, you asked me, what does it look like from the outside? And what I think is fascinating is now being on the inside and walking around your house and chatting with you. And we even used some of your equipment. Yeah. I put it on and it's 20,000 sit-ups in, 30 minutes, and it's kind of scary, and it makes these movements and shocks you. And as we were sitting there talking while I'm on it, I'm like, this is actually not very bad. In fact, it's like nothing, really. And then, we used it for one on the pelvic floor. And then you were talking about another device you had. And I suppose what I realized sort of sitting here that I think is hard for people to imagine if they haven't touched it is that your life doesn't seem miserable at all. I think people sometimes see your protocol and they think there must be no freedom within this. Yeah. And yet, this is a lot of freedom, actually. I think you're modeling the future of humanity and getting people to shift their mentality by maybe the next stage is also showing them there is so much joy here. Your kids are adorable. Perhaps it doesn't actually have to be that foreign. So I think it's really cool what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. I would say that I was a slave to my former self. I was a slave to the need for dopamine. I was a slave to the need of my impulses. I was a slave to my emotional needs. I was absolutely in a terrible situation. And I am now more free than I ever have been in my entire life. And I think most people, when they think about it, are in fact slaves to their current selves. And that's uncomfortable. And so they tell pretty stories about this being the way that this is living their best life or whatever. But the human condition by default is being a slave to self, to your emotions, to your thoughts, to your surroundings. And we've built a society of addiction. And so I've finally, for the first time in my life, I've escaped it. In my mind, in my addictions, in society, superimposing its will upon me, whether it be algorithms or food or junk food or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I'm as free as I've ever been for the first time in my entire life.
Incredible. And what an idea that you actually don't have to be your thoughts, that you could be free from base desires continuously, and that you have, as you've talked about, the ability to be a sovereign human and an autonomous man. Pretty cool. So I love this part that Bryan talked about, zeroth principle thinking. And I basically said to him at the end of the interview, I was like, man, this has me thinking that there's so much I should be doing that's bigger and that I'm actually playing a little small in some ways. And I was like, but I don't know what to do about that. You're talking about like existential crises of humanity and expanding human consciousness. And I'm over here like trying to do another deal, trying to hire better, trying to, be better as a wife. And he's like, let me give you a framework. And this framework was really impactful for me. So I hope it is for you too. He goes, draw a box like this. And inside this box, I want you to go around and I want you to talk to a bunch of different people, as many as you can, about what they are doing for work or career or purpose and why they are doing it. So what do you do for work? I'm an accountant. Why? Because I want to make money for my family. Okay. You write that into the box, And then he goes, if you want to be a zeroth principle thinking, anything that's inside of the box, you can't do. You have to go to true blue ocean, what is outside of it. Can you do something that nobody else is talking about? Because that's where it's not competitive. And why I loved this is because in my business, at least right now, I'm thinking in lots of different ways. God, I just feel like we're hand-to-hand combat. We're just like fighting against all these other people who are trying to do something just like us. They copied us in some way. And then now they're like little ankle biters at me. And if you guys have felt like that too, it's really hard. The famous saying is, the only thing that you know for sure in a knife fight is that you're both going to get cut. And sometimes that's what it feels like when you're working inside of the box. I want to double click on trolls here for a second with Bryan. So he gets crazy hate on the internet, like incredible amounts of hate. People call him a cult leader. They say horrible things about him and his son. I mean, stuff that I can't even imagine. And, I looked up at him and I was like, kind of seems like you like the hate. It seems like you like the trolls a little bit. And he kind of looked back at me and he's very calm and zen-like. And he said, well, better than being irrelevant. He's like, much better to be known and thought after than ignored. And I thought about that for a second because he said it sort of flippantly and very calm. And it reminded me of this famous Ted Turner quote, which is, he said about the press, you can say any negative thing you want to say about me, but make sure you spell my name right. And there's just an energy there that I think is worth taking home with this idea that if you're going to do anything interesting, people are probably going to troll you. And Bryan has famously said many times, I don't care about what anybody thinks about me in the 21st century. I care about what the 25th century thinks about the actions that I am taking today. Could you even imagine a reframe better than that? Like the next time somebody is trolling you, the next time somebody says something hateful, the next time somebody says you can't, imagine not even caring what they think, but not caring what anybody who is alive today thinks, because maybe this entire generation doesn't understand where you're trying to go. That would be incredibly freeing, wouldn't it? I'm going to try it. Let's talk about what I'm calling the deal of the week, or gangster marketing moves by Bryan. First of all, the guy's kind of a marketing genius, which I think makes sense given he made a bunch of money before doing all this. Case in point number one. He started this idea of zeroth principle thinking. And so he created sort of a whole new terminology. And what does he do to really hammer that home? He changes his name on Twitter, or X now, to Zero. So of course, that's going to have people asking about it and remembering it nonstop. He also has a link to a site where he explains zeroth principle thinking. And what does that do? It allows him to immediately say that anybody who doesn't understand what he's doing is not operating from the degree of principle that he is. Really, really smart. Also, I remember like in the beginning thinking, this guy is naked on the internet a lot. Like he's like naked with kettlebells in a garage with like a forest in the background. And I remember thinking that's weird or like different. And then I realized what he would do. He would kind of come up with this like, campaign that the New York Times would pick up, and then he would launch a product afterwards. It's kind of the Kardashian effect, essentially. They knew that to draft off the cultural conversation meant they could go viral with one thing, and then with all the virality getting pushed at them, they would sell something. And I think that's exactly what Bryan is doing. He's selling ideas and also products. In fact, because he was getting so much hate on the internet, he launched an olive oil company because he thinks that the delivery of olive oil is really important if it's done a particular way. And so he had an olive oil called Blueprint. People started calling it snake oil. What did he do? He changed the name of the company to Snake Oil. Brilliant marketing play where he plays directly into the hate that he's getting as opposed to bowing down to it. Another person that's incredible at this that nobody likes to give credit to is Trump. He would often say something ridiculous and then allow that to become a platform for him to hold the megaphone as opposed to somebody else. Really, really smart. That's why I think Bryan might be the Twitter gangster marketer of our time. Bryan did not start out as a genius. In his mind, when we were walking around and I was looking at all the books that filled his shelves, I said, have you always just been really smart? And he said, no. In fact, I was super challenged in school. I didn't get good grades. I struggled a lot. I found it sort of insufferable. And, I didn't score well on standardized tests. So I have no idea if my IQ is high or low, but he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's super normal. And I think that should be freeing because look at what this guy has been able to do despite sucking at school and potentially not having some off the charts IQ. I then asked him, well, are you really good at math? And he said, no, I'm not good at math. I'm like very average at math, which I just sort of assumed like guy builds fintech company, sells for almost $1 billion. Now is like spending $2 million a year on changing the world and all these complex systems. He must be brilliant. And his take is actually different. He was like, no, I actually am not sure that I'm smart. He's like, in fact, I think it's really hard for me to process information. I have to actually rearrange it in a way that my brain fits. And he's like, and I'm okay with that, but it isn't like I very easily process things. And there's a lot of freedom in that. And then lastly, he showed us his penis clip that he measures his erections with at night, which, I was like, Bryan, I'm not touching that piece of equipment. He jokingly, was like, I know, of course. As he was talking about it, what came to me was that he is really trying to alter this puritanical viewpoint that I think that we have, that our conversations around sex and our, different anatomical parts has to be sexualized as opposed to just measured. And so I don't actually think that he's doing anything that crazy. He's just normalizing a conversation that we have historically not allowed or thought was normal or appropriate for people to be having. There's a lot of beauty and good in that, in taking the things that we gave away our power to. We gave away our power to talk about our anatomy to doctors and to the medical complex. We gave away our ability to measure ourselves to doctors and the pharmaceutical and medical complex. There's really nowhere where you can grab all of your historical medical data and put it all in one place in order to figure out how you are measured or marked at a human. And instead you go to the doctor and they go, yeah, you're kind of fine by these metrics. And instead he's taking that all back. And he's like, no, I'm going to measure it all and I'm going to figure out what is important. And I think there's something really beautiful in that, in becoming his own owner of his own body. And maybe we aren't really the owners of ours. And this channel, we obsess on one thing, which is how to get more ownership for each of us. And I hope you felt like I did a little bit more to that after this conversation.
Talking with Bryan Johnson was insane. And I thought instead of having a deal this week, Bryan Johnson is actually kind of the deal. So we're going to break down his business, all of the businesses that he's built, and then currently what is he working on today. So basically, Bryan founded Braintree. Then he bought Venmo. Actually, you guys have all used that for only $26 million, which in the scheme of things, not that much. Grew it like crazy and processed 12 billion payments, then sold that bad boy as a combined entity for about $800 million, took home $300 million himself, and sort of walked away. Fascinating part about that, he then creates a $100 million fund, the OS fund, which invests in a bunch of technologies that now Bryan's using to try to live forever, including a company called Kernel, which was a neurotech company, designed helmet. This one you can see here if you're watching. I played around with it yesterday. And his goal was basically to detect cognitive issues early. Then in 2021, he announced what's called the blueprint. I think we should walk people through the blueprint really quick. It's been all over the internet before, but Rachel, turns out you follow this guy and are all up in the blueprint. So walk up through what it is super high level really quickly.
The blueprint is his public science experiment, basically, to try to reverse his aging. He's about 45, or at least he was when this came out, I think. He's trying to reverse his aging to the age of 18, which is about the age that his son was when he started this. And he's doing this by basically spending I think it's $2 million a year on a bunch of different experiments. And this includes things like hundreds of tests, blood transfusions, no sex after 8 p.m., and obviously, most people would not be able to do this. So he's trying to take it all on for himself. And he's documenting this entire thing over on YouTube, on a blog. And he's kind of teaching people the ways in hopes of making himself age backwards.
Yeah, he has this wild lab that's in his house. And so you'll see on the interwebs that I played around with it. There's one that you sit on. It tightens your pelvic floor and your rectum.
Oh
and so
my God.
You sit on this stool and it pulsates. And
Are you saying you did Kegel exercises with Bryan Johnson?
I did. And I was like, Bryan, the thing is, am I about to orgasm in front of you and my employee? Because I'm going to feel weird about that. And he was like, it's highly unlikely. And I was like,
that is great. Wait, so why does he have?
Well, he has a whole lab because, well, a couple things that's interesting that I had never thought about before is he says that, I'm going to paraphrase, so sorry, Bryan, if I get this wrong, but basically that the longer you can delay your inability to procreate, the longer you can live, which like makes sense. Like as long as you can continue to procreate, you know, the human body wants to stay intact, delay cellular degeneration, etc. And so your pelvic floor and your rectum, I guess, are important for that. And so you sit on it and it like zaps you. And so he's like, you're going to want to move around. So I'm like, ah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that cracks. So is this something that is scientifically backed?
I haven't checked the science on this. Somebody should. I'm sure it's all over Bryan Johnson's thing, but I used it and it wasn't that painful. He's like, I'm on this when I'm on meetings. I'm like, I'm dying. Could you imagine him on Zoom just getting rectally zapped every 7 seconds?
That's God. I can't say what I was going to say.
Then I did his machine that you put on your abs that does 20,000 sit-ups in 30 minutes.
Is that real? I feel like that was a big thing in the 80s or something like that. Like you remember
I don't
like
know.
when it, like, I don't know. I feel
Dude,
like
I
saw
tried to do it here in
infomercials.
Austin. A friend of mine told me that it worked for her and I went and signed up for it and it was $3,000
Oh
for
my gosh.
three sessions. I'm like, I better walk out with an 8-pack
Yeah.
or I want a refund. And I didn't walk out with an 8-pack, but he does it 3 days a week and he's got abs. So I don't know. It could work. What else did I see that he has there? He has sort of like a famous breakfast with like mushrooms and this nutty pudding and stuff that he does.
Did you try it?
That he I didn't try the nutty pudding because I don't know. I felt rude. You know, you don't want to go to his house. You're like, the thing is, yuck. So like the Latina in me couldn't let that happen. But then also, he's like, do you want to see my erection measuring device? And I was like, yes, I
You're
do.
like, obviously. You're
I was
like, whip it out. Let's see it.
Yes, I do. I was like, but I do not want to touch that one, Bryan. He was like, obviously.
Is that just like a life vest that he wears, like for his penis? Like
That'd be a life
I don't know, like a little mini life vest. I was reading a Time
just
magazine article.
floats it up?
Yeah. I was reading the Time magazine article, and that's how they described it. And now I want to know. She didn't show any images.
I know.
Yeah.
I think I have some video of it. No, basically it
Oh,
looks
good.
like a little, I don't know, like a Lego with like a string on it. And
Oh, so it's
the
not like an
penis-
aura ring?
No.
Oh.
No, and you just kind of like the string goes on it and then
Okay.
it measures something. A life vest.
We're gonna keep that. We're gonna keep the conversation moving.
Seems happy. And I asked him if he was happy. He said he was happy, happier than he's ever been. But what I think is really interesting is this regime. I mean, when I told my parents about this, maybe you guys can relate, you know, they were like, they had a visceral reaction to Bryan Johnson. It was like, why would he live like this? Why would he do this? You know, I just want to live my life. That's so weird. You know, they're kind of like making fun. They'd be pissed if I heard this, so I hope they don't listen. But and I get why, because I think Bryan Johnson is putting in people's face their bad decisions every day. And if he's right, then like, I don't know, 60% of the decisions we make every day are slowly killing us. And that's actually really hard to take in, right? And especially with a statement like every thing that lessens my life is an act of violence against my body. Well, what he's basically then saying, and that I think people could take that way, is, well, you are committing acts against your body that are violent nonstop. And so I see why people get so visceral of reaction against him. But it honestly surprised me because I don't think my parents are internet trolls, but they were not into it. You know, they were freaked out about it.
Well, nobody wants to be wrong.
Nobody
You
wants to
know?
be wrong. And, you know, I think if deep down inside, you know the things that you shouldn't be doing for your health. I know the things I shouldn't be doing for my health. And we're choosing to do them or not do them anyway. And we can like write a story to ourselves about why that is. You know, you eat the Cheetos, you have the drinks, you do whatever because, you know, you only live once. YOLO, right? But there's also another side to it. And I think it's wild the amount of willpower this guy has. The other thing that's cool, you know, then my parents were like, well, he's probably trying to, you know, make money or build a business. I'm like, first of all, I don't have $300 million hanging around, but if I did, it'd probably be sufficient. And so like, it's not like the guy needed to go out and have a new side hustle of like getting berated on the internet. He was already pretty famous and rich, so I don't think that was necessary. But it is wild, the businesses that he's creating, right? Like we were talking about them. So he's got an olive oil company that he changed the name to Snake Oil, wink, wink, and takes every day. He's got now 11 new products. I actually talked to him. I sent him a picture of my grandma, who's 99. It was like, she's still motoring, but we should get her on the protocol. And he's like, I'll pay for her to be on the protocol. He's like, we could document it. I'm like, yeah, but what if I kill grandma? Which like kind of freaks me out. So I don't know about that.
It's like grandma's been like run over by a reindeer. It's like grandma's been murdered by a biohacker. Well, I heard he doesn't like to be called a biohacker.
That will be the YouTube title for this podcast. Then obviously he has a ton of different products that I think he could come out with in the future because he's got this wild media empire. You know, people give us a hard time for being on the internet, right? Like, why would you do this if you had all this wealth? Why would you tell other people how to buy businesses if you already bought businesses? But he's sort of the same way. I mean, I think you followed a little bit what he's doing on YouTube and with the Don't Die meetings. Is there anything there that you think's interesting for people?
With all of his YouTube videos? Yeah. I do. One thing that I really appreciate is that he documented another woman that's also doing the blueprint with him, who I believe worked for him at one point, possibly, but she's fairly young. Something that I'm still kind of nervous about. I also am interested in this kind of stuff. I know I'm making a lot of fun right now, but I think anybody that's interested in health or the wellness space would be interested in him and has seen these videos before pop up. But I am a little nervous about only having one person kind of test himself and do this, because I almost feel like I'm putting all my eggs in one basket when I'm taking the advice that he's giving, because he's the only person that's getting A/B tested.
Yeah, it's a good point. Immediately when you say Bryan Johnson and basket, I think of his Easter image. Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of,
good, by the way, with an Easter basket with a bunch of eggs in it, right where you could imagine. He's got a sense of humor, which I appreciate. But I think you're right. You know,
it's like him and that woman, and then I guess his son. So I will say, putting my eggs in three baskets. But that still
Plus
feels...
his dad. I think he's having his dad.
Oh, I didn't know
actually.
that.
Yeah. He transfused his blood. Is that the right word?
Yes, for his son, though, I thought.
No, into his dad.
Oh,
and
my gosh.
decreased his dad's age, too. But wouldn't that freak you out if your parents were like, the thing is...
Blood runs, what is it, thicker than water? Yeah,
it takes a whole new meaning. Yeah, but I thought that was wild. The other thing that I think is interesting about him is he realizes what we already know, which is that attention is the new economy. If he compared $300 million with hundreds of millions of views online, which he's doing with YouTube, with getting the next generation involved, he can create a cult-like movement. So he has these Don't Die meetings where he's had like 500 Don't Die meetings all around the world. People meet up all with the same idea of trying to increase longevity, which is actually really, really cool, because another way to say it would be 500 meetings happen around the world with people who are interested in healthier living decisions, you know? And he just uses a catchy tagline that pisses people off because they're like, why do these people want to live forever? But all it really is, it's like, hey, what if we all tried to live a little bit healthier? You would think that would be a good thing for society. It's kind of backwards that we're so societally warped that we think that this is negative.
I think there are more people that are upset at the idea that living a lifestyle like him that would take away the enjoyment of life. I think that's what they're really mad about. Like, why would they don't think that it's worth living if you live a life that is like his, because to them that depletes them of joy. And I guess you can't really quantify how much somebody really values life without having certain things in it, you know?
Yeah. He has a quote too that I love that's something along the lines of freeing yourself from the prison of desires is like the ultimate happiness. And so I think his response would be a little bit Buddha-like, which would be, well, I just want less things. And because I want less things, I'm actually happier, and I can be very happy and then have a long, healthy life. It's also wild because I asked him, I'm like, you seem very calm. I'm like, do you get mad very often? And he's like, not really. I'm like, do you get upset? You're like, when was the last time you yelled? And he's like, I can't remember. So I don't know. Part of us are just like, we're wired different. You know, I'm a really excitable Latina, so I don't think that would work for me. Now, the last thing I thought that was fascinating, I talked to Bryan about where he's going with this business. And like, imagine him launching a health empire on the back of personal experiments where he has skin in the game. So you guys actually know, at least, you know, when you go to a doctor and the doctor is like fat, unhealthy, like divorced, and giving you health advice, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, man, what are you doing? And with this guy, at least, you know, he's doing it all, which I think has like perfect alignment. So I bet he built something giant. It kind of reminds me, I texted him, I was like, you know, you should look at what Gwyneth Paltrow did with Goop, because it was similar. I mean, remember all that crap she got when she launched?
Yeah. I do feel like there could be a funny meme going around on the internet that's not made yet. That's like Goop girlfriend, Bryan Johnson boyfriend.
Oh, this is good. Somebody make that. Tag us on that on Twitter. Also, like something with like remember when Gwyneth Paltrow talked about the golden yoni? Am I saying that right?
Is that the egg that she put somewhere? Yeah.
Put up your part as a
I'm
lady?
trying to see it. So I'm looking at olive oil over here on Goop's website, which is by Flamingo Estate, which is a really cool company. Flamingo Estate, I think, goes to like famous people's houses and will like say, hey, if you want to make honey and have bees on your property, we'll put it there and it's like better for your property, and we'll sell the honey and say like, oh, it's Gwyneth Paltrow's honey or whatever. So Flamingo Estate, kind of cool company. Goop sells Flamingo Estate olive oil. It is $85. How much do you think Blueprint olive oil costs?
$60.
Okay, let's look. Do you already know this?
No, I'm guessing.
Okay, $60. Yeah. Okay.
I actually swear I didn't know that.
Yeah,
but I should have asked him. Yeah, so I think there's something there. I think he could create the tech bro Goop of our age, or even just think about it. What's the healthy dudes company? Like, I don't know that exists. I mean, healthy rich chicks is probably Goop, right? Healthy, like, mid-market moms is Jessica Alba, whatever that company is called. Honest. Okay, I'm thinking just whenever I think of Guy Health, I think of Equinox. I think
that's a gym chain.
And that's also, like, multi-gender.
That's true. I just feel like whenever I hear people talking about it openly a lot, it's Matt.
Yeah. Anyway, I think there's a play there. I don't know what the revenue Gwyneth does now at Goop, but I would imagine it's pretty sizable. And she's really mainstreamed a bunch of stuff that was not mainstreamed prior. I mean, you could give her crap for how expensive some of this stuff is, but like, don't buy it. Go buy a cheaper version somewhere else. And you pay a premium for sort of the content, the knowledge, the luxe version of it.
The last thing I want to talk about, I guess, is I'm interested to see if he comes out with a specific piece of hardware that is something that a consumer that, like myself, would buy. Like, I wear an Oura ring. It was wildly expensive, but it was still something that, like, I saved up for. I asked for part of the money for Christmas. I chipped in half. Like, I was like, this is something like almost, I thought of it like a non-negotiable piece of health tech. I really like it. I've had it for quite a few years. It rocks for me. But I could see him like making something like an Oura ring that I could lift in or something. Yeah. Would be nice.
I want whatever the machine was that I did. You know, do you know how hard it is as a woman to like get a 6-pack or to get just tighter here? My husband just stops looking at soda, gets skinny. I could run 400 miles every day and not get a 6-pack. So I don't know. If Bryan Johnson is listening, I think the shout out would be, yeah, we want to live longer, but we also want to be hot. So can we have both?
Like an inside of his medicine cabinet tour, like a Vogue style tour.
Oh, I saw it. It's just a lot of pills.
He doesn't give anything that's like this is my like super good, like, I don't know. I imagine he's like serums and stuff. Like, I want him to like goopify himself. Like, honestly, Gwyneth needs to go to his house.
Nice.
It does. He does look like he dyes his hair.
Didn't ask. I could have added that to the repertoire.
I could also see him making a wellness club where you have all those so Remedy Place, I think, is a wellness club chain. He should make like a wellness club where you can go meet other people that are interested in
the Blueprint,
not dying. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, maybe for a premium price, like how much is Equinox? Like $250 a month or something?
Yeah, something like that. The moral of the story, I think, is, again, what I hope you took away from Bryan Johnson is play bigger games, wild ideas about the fact that, you know, can you even imagine a mind in which you decide that your entire mission is going to be not to die, and the belief system you have to have locked in to determine that you might even be able to beat like the ultimate thing that beats all humans? And I think that's pretty powerful. And so I like listening to the crazy ones, people like Bryan Johnson, who've built something, done it again, and then trying it at an even bigger level. Really, really cool. Thanks for being builders. I see you all, and you are a big deal to me. We'll see you next week. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed and reviewed the podcast, please do. That's how this thing grows. Appreciate all you guys.
That I have it, you know that I got it. No need to look all in a bag. Stunting like this because I work so hard. I'm the best. I only speak facts. If I say that I have it, you know that I got it. No need to look all in a bag.
I could make a pretty easy legal argument with the divorce rate about 53% that it is definitely negligent, possibly reckless to get married. How many people stay together miserable? 73% of them. Like, that's insane. If I said there's a 73% chance we walk out of here today, you're getting hit in the head with a bowling ball. Like, you would never, willy-nilly go for it.
James Sexton is one of the best divorce attorneys in the world. He has the keys to why people stay married, why people stay happy, and what will 100% lead to you getting divorced, whether you want it or not. This episode is going to shock you, and it is going to teach you the things that they should have taught us before we said, I do. You said affairs almost never start with sex. What do they actually start with?
I think they start the way relationships start, which is you're interested and you're interested. I've represented the cheated on. and I've represented the cheater. The two biggest problems are we don't know what we want and we don't know how to express it to another person. But when's the last time that you said to your partner, what are some things I do that make you feel loved? There's something to be said for kind words and because I don't know which comes first, but I'll tell you right now, you do one, you'll probably get the other more often.
What are the first signs that a marriage is going sideways and it's going to end in your office?
What I would say are the red flags that a relationship is not likely to continue successfully.
I don't know if these numbers are right, but if they are, this is insane. It says you've handled 2,000 plus divorces. Is that right?
Yeah, easily. It's 25 years, almost 26 now.
Wow. You get hundreds of millions of views on divorce. Your work also, interestingly to me, goes way beyond divorce. It's about like almost the wake-up calls people need to hear before they get divorced. So given all you've seen and all this breakup, is marriage still a good idea?
I think so. You know, I tell people marriage is like the lottery. You're probably not going to win. But if you win, what you win is so good that, like, why not buy a ticket? Like, I think, you know, and the difference is that, you know, lottery, like, you can't really do much to increase your chances of winning the lottery. It's a game of chance. But marriage, there's a lot you could do to make it work. And when you meet the overwhelming majority of people are bad at marriage. Like marriage, you could make an argument, and this is why lawyers don't get invited to parties very often. Like you could make an argument that marriage is negligent. Like negligence is defined as any activity where you fail to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk of serious harm. Okay, that's the like dictionary definition of negligence. Recklessness is a conscious disregard for a substantial, unjustifiable risk of harm. So I could make a pretty easy legal argument with the divorce rate about 53% that it is definitely negligent, possibly reckless to get married. And keep in mind, that's 53% end in divorce. How many people stay together miserable for the kids, for religious reasons, they don't want to give away half their shit, whatever it might be. Another 10%, I'm being nice, maybe 20. Yeah. Now you got a technology fails like 73% of it. Like, that's insane. Like, that's insane. If I said there's a 73% chance we walk out of here today, you're going to get hit in the head with a bowling ball, you would stay in, or you'd wear a helmet at a minimum, right? Like, you would never just, willy-nilly go for it. But yet, we're actually not only super into marriage still as a culture, there's a presumption you should do it. Yeah. Like, if someone, one of your friends came to you and said, I'm getting married, and you said, really, why? Like, that would be the most indelicate, unpleasant question, right? But realistically, it's a fairly, like, we're really happy, we want to get the government involved. Like, that's a very odd thing for a person to say, but you're not allowed to even question it because sort of the wedding industrial complex and, there's just this theory, like it's just a tradition now. And I've said before that, to some degree, tradition is the wisdom of the people who were here before us. And to some degree, tradition is peer pressure exerted by dead people. And I think that, when you say like, well, why are you getting married? Well, because you're supposed to. Well, why? Well, my parents were married. My grandparents were married. Okay, but like your grandmother didn't have the sum total of all human wisdom in a digital device in her hand. Like the world she lived in was very different. So why would a technology that worked for her necessarily make sense for you? So, marriage is just shockingly challenging at a minimum. I still think it's a good idea because the other statistic I find equally, if not more interesting, is that 86% of people remarry within 5 years of their divorce.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. And I've watched so many people do it and do it quite successfully. Sometimes because I think that they bring, I think second marriage energy is a different thing. I think it's like, okay, I've figured out what I don't want. And I've seen and made some mistakes. And now I know what not to do, hopefully. And failure is a phenomenal teacher in that regard. And I think that people who have been through it, they kind of go, okay, like I'm not quite as afraid anymore because I've had this happen. It's like when you've had a failed business, it's unfortunate, but it's also, there's a freedom of like, okay, I failed and I'm still alive.
Didn't die.
Like I'm still here. I didn't die. So you know what? Let me ante up again. Let's do this. And let me take the lessons and do something with it. So I think that marriage is still something that's incredibly important to us as a species. And I think there has to be some greater reason for that, you know?
Yeah. What about, can you tell after all of these divorces and being around all of these people who are unhappily married, if you look at a couple, can you tell if they are moving towards divorce or not? And if so, how, why, what are the signs?
You know, I've been told I have good, we don't know what to call it yet, you know, like I have good gaydar because I live in Chelsea and I can kind of be like, oh, maybe he is. But I don't know what the divorce equivalent of gaydar would be, where I can just sort of like smell I used to be very good at it on watching the Real Housewives shows on Bravo. I would be like, oh, they're done. Oh, yeah, they're on their way out. And some of their divorces I've actually done. I've represented a couple of them. That's public knowledge. But yeah, I mean, I think that I can, when I spend time with a couple, I definitely have a radar for the habits, the ways they interact with each other, and a sensitivity to it. I think we actually all do, probably, but I think that my sensitivity to it is much higher because I spend so much time with people who are in that level of conflict to the point where it's so irretractable that now they're getting divorced. Like a couples counselor probably would spend time with people that are in marital challenge but might find their way to navigate out of it. I am the look, it's dead and I'm here to bury it person. So.
And what do they typically look like? Like, what are the first signs that a marriage is going sideways and it's going to end in your office?
Yeah. You know, my mom used to say to me that it's hard to spot intelligence, but you can spot stupid a mile away. And so maybe intelligence is like an absence of stupid, right? So I think a lot of what I would say are the red flags that a relationship is not likely to continue successfully are an absence of things rather than a presence, right? Yeah. So like one of the things that's present in almost all the happy couples I know is this sense of like cheering for each other. You know, this sense of like, you're interested, you're interesting, and I'm cheering for you. When you have that, it's a superpower of sorts. And the absence of it or the opposite of it, we've all been to the dinner party where like whatever he says, she's rolling her eyes at. And whatever she says, he's like not even really listening. And he's kind of like, wait, what? Like, yeah, okay, whatever. You know, and it's just a vibe. It's a feeling. It's
and
that
they think
sense
it looks
of like
cool.
Yeah. Well, you know, the zeitgeist has told people it's cool. Yeah. Like I don't know what that's about, but like, you know, this is something that as a man and a woman, we probably experience a little differently. But like you go out with a group of men and if a guy is like, dude, my wife's like the coolest, man. Like it's sort of like, well, what is with this guy? Whereas if the guy is like, my wife's like the most loathsome harpy ever to castrate a man, you know, they're like, yeah, I know, man. That's how they are. And women, it's the same thing. Like if you say like, oh, my husband's just so great, you know, it's kind of, maybe it's a little more acceptable. But if you do the like, you know, man, they're just so stupid. It's like, amen, sister, you know, and that's, we've really been taught to this, like have this battle, you know, and see it that way. And look, for whatever reason, you know, the battle of the sexes and the sort of girls versus boys thing, I get there's a bonding element to that or whatever. But like if you're saying there are 8 billion people in the world and you're the one, like I want you. Like, I want you to hold my hand and let's figure this thing out. Let's walk together. Let's see each other's blind spots. Let's like try to just cheer for each other, help each other. Like to me, the goal of marriage should be that at the end of your life, you could say, this person helped me be the most authentic version of myself. And I helped them do the same thing. Like, what could be more worthy of a pursuit than that? Like, what could be a greater asset to have than that? But for most people, I don't know that that's the goal. There's this sense of like, you know, yeah, like this is my person. Like I picked them. I don't know if I'd pick them again if I had it to do over again. Like, and that's when you feel that around people, that rolling of the eyes. But one of the things I think is really fun to do is when you're out, you know, with a group of couples or whatever, and someone's got that vibe of like, oh, you can tell they had a fight in the car on the way there, or they have that sort of like rolling their eyes at each other. If you go, so how'd you guys meet? Yeah. Tell me about how you met. There's a softening that happens that is fascinating to me because people kind of go back in their head to like when they were trying to close the deal. you know? And when it still was something they were aspiring to, was to be this person's person. And they go back there in their mind for a minute, and there's something that shifts. So for me, the long answer to that question is when I feel like people have lost that plot completely, they've stopped trying to close, you know, they've lost sight of the fact that like this is their person. And, you know, constructive criticism is important in any relationship, but it's still criticism. Like, and it never feels good to be criticized. And you know, obviously, as someone who has a lot of management experience, that, you know, there are ways to modify the behaviors of people around you that don't require direct criticism, even constructive criticism. Like praising the behavior that you're trying to facilitate is the way to do it. And in marriage, that's incredibly easy. It's incredibly easy because you have all these levers. You have affection, sex, romance. You know, you have all of these things that you can weaponize in a good way to modify the behavior of this person and help improve the dynamic without them feeling criticized. So to me, when I see criticism, that to me is the biggest red flag.
That's so good. My husband actually was the one who taught me. He taught me that wasn't cool to even make jokes about your partner in front of other people. And he was like, it's just a disrespectful thing. We don't do that in front of other people. And I had really, you know, my parents have been married forever. They're very happily married still. They're incredible partners. But that was okay in their marriage. You know, they could have a little... But when I saw it, I thought, yeah, actually it is kind of disrespectful. And, you know, Chris and I, it's us against the world. And don't get me wrong, we fight, but I love how you say healthy couples fight. They just fight fairly. And so
it's no low blows. It's no like, the weaponization of intimacy to me is the scariest thing in the world because it's so brave to love someone. Like it's so brave, like to go, I'm going to show you all of these soft spots. Like, you know, you marry a Navy SEAL, he's got soft spots. I guarantee it, you know? And maybe he doesn't show them to anybody, you know, but he's got to be able to show them to you. And if when someone makes you the keeper of that, if you ever use that to like weaponize, like anyone who's ever been in a relationship for more than a month, you have a sentence, like you keep it in the chamber, hopefully forever. But you have a sentence you know you could say to your partner that would literally reduce them to tears. Like we all do. We all do. Like you have it with your friends. You have it. Anyone you know really well, you're like, I know what would crush them. And as a divorce lawyer, like I see what happens when people unleash that kraken, you know, and you can't take it back. You can't take it back. And those little indignities, those little jabs, those little, like people's relationships fall apart the way people go bankrupt, very slowly and then all at once. And how companies fail, very slowly and then all at once. And relationships the same thing. It's like very slowly and then you just go right off the cliff.
Oof. You know, I loved how you talked about why people shouldn't talk badly about their spouses. And you also had this story about a dog that my husband and I were watching last night. And we were sort of laughing about it and saying like, I think one of the interesting things about you and why I wanted you to come talk to our people is I've been through a divorce and it was terrible. And it wasn't his fault entirely and it wasn't my fault entirely. We were two super flawed people that just couldn't figure it out. And if I don't have very many regrets in life, but that one's damn near close. Just like getting there, having that presupposition that we have to get married and I just should marry a person because there are these boxes that it fit into. And I take that on my shoulders. Like, I think that was my fault for even saying yes fully, you know, and I was the one that wanted to leave. And so I'm always like, man, if I could go to young Codie and say a few things differently, it would be a lot of the stuff that you talk about. And it's weird that I would say I would talk to young Codie about a divorce attorney. You know, that's not like my immediate thought. It's like maybe a fucking counselor, a priest. I don't know. But you have this story about how a dog has a lot in common with how a good relationship is today and how we're kind of fucked up in the way we think about relationships. Will you share it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a dog person, so I've always had dogs. And I think they teach us a lot about love because if I've learned anything from my dogs, it's how absolutely insane it is to love anything. And I think part of it really is the acknowledgement, because they have this incredibly short lifespan, we know that a dog is not gifted to us permanently, it's loaned. Like, we're going to have it for this little period of time. And I think there's something about when someone says, it's going to be you and me forever, that there's a very human part to go, whew, great, all right, got that done now. I can focus on some other things, you know, because there's no shortage of things to focus on. But really, like, love is loaned. Like, your husband's love is loaned to you, and your love is loaned to him. It's not permanently gifted. And your marriage will end. Every marriage ends. It ends in death or divorce. It's weird because it's one of those things you go, I really hope yours ends in death. Like, what a weird thing to say out loud. But the truth is, like, your marriage will end. And you want it to end in death. You want it to end way down the road in death. But more likely than not, marriages end in divorce. But there is something about the love we have for a dog, the love we have for our pets, that I think knows that this is not going to be here forever, and that we should be really enjoying it and really focusing on it and really being selfless in our love of it. And also, too, there's something about the way, I mean, dogs just are always cheering for us, you know? Like, there's an old joke, like, if you want to know who loves you more, lock your spouse and your dog in the trunk of the car, open it up a half hour later and see which one's happy to see you.
My father-in-law told me that joke before we got married.
Yeah,
so,
it's fair. It's a fair joke, you know. But I really do think that we learn a lot about ourselves and about love and about loss by having pets. I think that for me, I've learned a lot about love from having a dog, and also from my heart's infinite capacity for love. Because every time I go, yeah, I'm never doing that again, I could never love any dog the way I love Buster. I could never love any dog the way I love Huckleberry. There's no way I could love. And then somehow I do. Like, and it doesn't take anything away from how much I loved them to have this new additional love in my life. But it reminds me that, you know, that we have this infinite capacity for love, and that it's incredibly brave. Like, it's incredibly brave to love something. It's incredibly brave, because to love anything is to accept the fact that you will inevitably lose it. And so acknowledging that I'm going to hold on to this thing that I can never hold on to forever, and I'm going to open myself up to it, and I'm going to let it become part of me, I think is the bravest thing a person can do. And I think, you know, if you're not scared, it's not brave. You know, like, I'm sure your husband and any of everyone he's ever served with, like, I'm sure they've all been scared.
Of course.
And that's what makes them brave.
100%.
Is that they're scared and they do the thing that needs to be done anyway. And I think love should be approached that way.
Why do you think that you're not more jaded, having seen all these divorces? I mean, I've met a lot of attorneys.
Yeah.
And we talked about this a little bit beforehand, but, you know, you seem to be a tough guy, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, tattoos, divorce attorney, some of the biggest divorces in the world you've done.
Yeah.
But you also seem really kind and very open-hearted. How did you keep that?
I blame my mom. She was, you know, I was the perfect amalgam of my two parents. My father was a Annapolis Vietnam veteran, like really hard, really rigid man. My mom was like left wing, so far left, it was like the leftist you could ever be, and progressive liberal and a total hippie. So I guess I had to become a lawyer because I had to see both sides of every argument always. They never voted for the same person, but they really loved each other. They were married over 50 years till my mom passed away. My mom passed away 10 years ago today.
I'm so sorry.
And no, she lived an amazing life. She was an amazing person. And I think a lot of it came from her. You know, there's a line from a Joseph Brodsky poem. It's one of my favorite poems. It's called A Song. He wrote it when his wife died. And the refrain of the poem is, I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. And one of the lines is, I wish you were here, dear. I wish you were here. I wish I knew no astronomy when the stars appear. And there's something to me about when you watch how fragile love is, and you watch so many people lose it, and you feel and you sit across the table from people who are in so much pain because they had it, and they had this path and this plan, and they were certain, and then it's gone. Sometimes they screwed it up. Sometimes it's through no fault of their own. Their spouse just came home and said, and there's something about when you were around that all the time that you realize, like, how beautiful and fragile love is. Like, because we It is the greatest. I mean, anyone, like people have said to me like, "Oh, how do you believe in love still?" And I'm like, that's like saying like, do you believe in gravity? Like gravity is there whether I believe in it or not. Like love is, of course I believe in love. Love's everywhere. Love's the only thing. Like all this other stuff we're doing, why are we doing it? We're doing it because we want love. We want to feel worthy of love. We want to care for the people we love. We want to have some level of safety, security, and control for the people we love or for ourselves so we can continue to enjoy time with the people we love. It all comes back to love. Like all of it comes back to love. So watching the fragility of love, watching the quote unquote failure of love has not made me less of a romantic. It's not made me less. It makes me more humbled by this vital, beautiful, fragile thing. And even though I know the astronomy, I still think the stars are beautiful. Like, I don't think that knowing that love can go horribly wrong has ever for a moment shaken my faith in how important it is and how beautiful it is. Because even as a divorced person myself, even as someone who has had love and seen that love end in the way you didn't expect it to end, like I am a better person for every one of those loves. And even when you say like, oh, you know, I look back at young Codie and I kind of want to say to her like, oh, maybe this is the wrong, like, you would never be who you are if you hadn't that experience. And you would not have the marriage you have now if you hadn't had that experience. And even if the lesson of that experience was to show you, okay, that isn't what I need. So I need to find something different than that in some ways. Like, and that's where I think there's so much overlap in my relationship on perspective and a lot of the things you do in terms of business and entrepreneurship is it's a lot about, you know, can people take the same ingredients and make a different meal with it, you know? Yeah. And we all know the answer is yes. Like we all know, like you can take the same people in a business and restructure it and change the way they interact with each other as manager and employee. And you can make an entirely new business with the exact same ingredients. You could give Thomas Keller or, you know, any amazing, you know, Michelin star chef the same ingredients as me, and they're going to make something incredible out of it because they have this technique and ability. So I think it's the same thing. Like, I think that the ingredients of who we are, when paired with other different ingredients, we can make something radically different. Or even in a relationship that's struggling, we can take those same ingredients and figure out ways to make something different with it.
Here's something nobody tells you. When I buy businesses, I don't just look at the cash flow. I look at how fast I can make them look credible online. Why? Because perception creates opportunity. Customers, lenders, even sellers judge you by your digital footprint before they ever shake your hand. That's why I like GoDaddy Aero. You plug in what you're building, and it instantly spins up a professional website, logo, email, even social posts. In other words, it gives you instant credibility. And credibility is currency. I've turned invisible businesses into deal-ready, customer-ready plays just by tightening their online presence. That's leverage. That's how you win. So if you want to look like you belong in the owner's seat from day one, go to GoDaddy.com/Codie Sanchez and launch with GoDaddy Aero today. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of different things you said. Like one of the lines that I love is you said, people say they fell out of love. No, they stopped doing the things that kept love alive.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
I think the biggest problem in relationships is that we just stop paying attention. Yeah. Like we just stop paying attention. And there's all these little tiny things when you first fall in love with someone that they do that you absolutely love and that make you feel loved and that you do for them and that probably make them feel loved. But like, when's the last time, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but when's the last time that you said to your partner or your spouse, hey, what are some things I do that make you feel loved? Or when's the last time you said, hey, you know when you get that, when you see that I'm out of that sparkling water that I like and you just like buy a case of it when you're out at the store, that makes me feel so seen and so loved. Like we kind of don't do that. Like we just don't do it. It's sort of like, oh yeah, like, you know, this person's with me now. Like they're legally obliged to be here. Like I don't, have to do all that anymore. And it's absolutely true. Like, you don't. Like, but there's so many things when you first meet someone and you're kind of trying to close the deal. You know, it's like the job interview. At the interview and the first week of work, like everything is new and fascinating and wonderful. And it's like, oh my God, they did this. And I'm just so glad to have the job. Like, this is so great. Like, I'm so tired of sending resumes. Like, I got the job. And like 4 months in, you're like, oh, you know, I mean, well, it's the same job, but your perception of how special it is and how lucky you are to have it has now been completely jaded by the fact that you have it. And so I think in relationships, we stop paying attention. Mm-hmm. And when we stop paying attention, you know, no single raindrop is responsible for the flood, but the flood is just a bunch of little raindrops. Mm. And so people always, when they're talking about marriages ending, they're like, oh, you know, and I get this a lot, like, because not everybody interviews with the level of nuance you do. They'll say, like, what are 4 things that people can do to save their marriage? And you're like, okay, or what are the main 3 reasons why marriages end, you know? And I'm always tempted to say like a snarky answer when they're like, what's the number 1 reason people get divorced? I'm like, well, because they don't want to be married anymore. You know, like, you know, that, but really what they want me to say is infidelity, you know, or financial impropriety, or, but those are symptoms. Like, infidelity is a symptom of the problem. The problem is almost always the same: disconnection. Disconnection from self, and then disconnection from the other person. Because the 2 biggest problems are we don't know what we want, and we don't know how to express it to another person. Mm-hmm. And the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. I mean, I think in both of our lines of work, we know that like the most dangerous lies are the things you tell yourself. Oh, no, well, no, we're going to next quarter, we're going to turn this thing around. Like, the lies you tell yourself are so dangerous in marriage because you can't possibly identify what it is you need, what your partner needs, how you're meeting it, how your needs are not getting met. If you're not having an honest conversation with yourself, and then ideally with your partner in some fashion.
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating because one of the things Chris is really good at is he will tell me frequently, like, we have to have the difficult conversations that most people want to push aside, because if we don't, they're a little bit like a festering wound, right? You just let it like rot away at the edges. And so sure, it is about, I don't know, trash left on the countertop, but it's not really about that. There's like something deeper.
But see, trash left on the countertop is a great example. Because trash left, like, it's not about the pasta. Like, trash left on the countertop is not about trash left on the countertop. It's about, why are you not respecting our space? Yeah, exactly. It's about, why do you not know that kind of bothers me? And if you do know it and you do it anyway, why is my feeling not important to you? Like, so that's kind of everything, you know? Like, how you do anything is how you do everything. And the passion with which you do it. Because if you think about it, that actually can be equally leveraged as a sign of love. Because if he doesn't mind having the thing on the counter and he knows you do, and he moves it off the counter, then he's saying, I love you. Like, that's what that is. Like, he's saying, best example I have is throw pillows. Like, I would never have a throw pillow in my whole life.
What is
like,
it with
what
us
man would be
I
like
don't
throw
know.
pillows? Like, we just don't.
Just love
but
them.
but women love them. And so I really could tell I was in love when I was like, oh yeah, I should straighten the throw pillows up, you know? Because it was like, it's in no way important to me. But I'd love to believe that my partner would see that and go, he doesn't give a shit about throw pillows. Like, he likes me. Because that's what that is. Yeah. Like, that's what that is. Like, that's a sign of love. And to me, we rarely say these things out loud. Like, we rarely say to our partner, these dumb little things you do that make me feel seen and loved and cared for. And these dumb little things you do that make me feel not valued and not cared for and kind of dismissed or ignored. But I feel like that's the stuff. And if we could isolate on that stuff and find ways to have discussions about that stuff that aren't going to bring out defensiveness in our partner, or we find ways to like engage in what I call loving behavior modification. You know, the best example I give of that is I dated, I'm a lawyer by trade, so I have to do I always have to be clean shaven. Like your husband gets to have the cool beard,
Yeah.
you know, or
But he
gets to have-
couldn't for like 15 years.
Oh yeah.
So that
well,
was
now it's like he's bouncing
now
back.
he's like,
yeah.
fuck you.
Or like Chris,
Beard.
you know, Williamson has the like, oops, I didn't know I was sexy stubble. You know, which is like Chris is gonna think I'm like man crushing on him now. But like
He's
it
gonna
really,
like it.
yeah. If I was gonna, he'd be a good man crush. But the truth is, like, I have to be clean shaven, and I have one of those like thick beards that like you know. So on the weekends, I tend not to shave because it's like I have 2 days off from shaving. I don't have to go to court. It's good. It's just like you're never gonna get me in a suit on the weekend. If someone invites me to a wedding on the weekend, I'm like, I'm not wearing a suit. It's not happening. I wear a suit 5 days a week. So I remember dating a girl, and she had really sensitive skin, and so when I would kiss her. And I was a little stubbly, like I'd be on the weekend, she would get like a little redness, you know, like y'all have sensitive skin.
Yeah.
And she would be like, oh, yeah, your beard is prickly. And it really brought out something defensive in me. Like, and I was very like, you know, like I wouldn't say it, but I find myself thinking like, you know, you should be happy that I'm kissing you. And like, now I got to shave when I'm going to see you and Monday through Friday. Like, this is great. Like, I've never, no break from this whatsoever. Needless to say, that relationship didn't work out. Not solely for that reason, although maybe it was a symptom. The next woman I dated had the exact same issue, but she was a genius because I would shave. Usually it was on Monday morning if she spent the weekend or something. Monday morning, she would come in after I'd shaved and she'd be like, oh God, you're like so sexy when you're clean shaven. And she would like press up against my skin and she'd be like, you're like Don Draper in Mad Men. I love it, you know? Dude, I would shave like 3 times a day. Like I would, by the way, I was like a little kid. Like I would shave and then I would come downstairs and I'd be like, I just shaved, you know? And she would be like, oh my God, I love it. Yeah. Now, she was doing the exact same thing. She was trying to get me to shave for her benefit, but she went about it brilliantly because I really felt like, oh, this is like something she likes about me. And this is an opportunity I have to like become even more attractive to her and to have some praise from her. What was it? It was the exact same thing as behavior modification, but it was approached from this place of like positive reinforcement, reframing what it is that you want. And to me, like that's how in a successful marriage, you shape the behavior of your partner.
God, it's so good. I'm going to take this so literally because
do
now when I want him to not have a beard, he can't listen to this podcast.
Yeah, you got to watch you got to watch old episodes of like Mad Men and be like, you look so, remember when you were, oh God, that was so hot. Most guys will be like, really? Okay. You know, like if we're going to get laid from it, we usually will do it. We'll usually do what needs to be
Yeah,
done.
you know, you have said a few funny things about what men want.
Yeah.
And I think you had a funny answer that I liked to what the male version of flowers
Nudes.
is.
Yeah, nudes. Yeah. It was very funny because that was actually off the top of my head. Somebody said, like, what's the male equivalent of getting flowers? I was like, nudes. Oh, wait, was that too quick of an answer? Let me think about it for a minute. Nudes. Yeah. Well, because it really is like we're visual. This is important. But it's that same, because what are flowers? Like, it really isn't like, hey, something was alive and now we've killed it and you can put it in water. Like, that's not like in and of itself a particularly romantic gesture, but we've assigned something to it, which is I was thinking of you. I wanted to give you this gesture of my affection. Like, it's really what it is. Well, for men, that's like a tremendous gesture of affection because, you know, the old adage of you know, every guy wants a good girl who's only bad for him, and every woman wants a bad boy who's only good for her.
So true. It's
And
like
it
every
really is
romance. See,
read every romance
my
novel, and it's all that. It's always like the hard, you know. So, but with her, he's gentle, you know. And like, come on, you're married to a seal, for God's sake.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
he
right
can
in
kill
the box,
people with
like,
a
right in the
popsicle
fucking-
stick, and meanwhile he's like soft and gentle and lovely with you. Like that's like the whole thing.
I
That's
don't
like
know.
every female fantasy right there.
Literally.
And guys, we really want someone who's like, oh, I've never been with a man and bodice ripping, you know, it's like our thing. So look, if these are the archetypes of the collective romantic unconscious, okay, leverage it, use it.
use it.
You know, like I believe in living in reality, and that's reality. So yeah, I think nudes is the equivalent of flowers. I think I've never, ever heard of a man getting a nude from a woman he has a relationship with and going, oh, that is not appropriate right now. Like wherever I've been in a courtroom and got one and went, like it really, because it's true. Like most heterosexual men, I'm really talking out of school here. I'm going to get kicked out of the like bro club. But like, it is hard not to applaud when a woman takes her shirt off. Like, it's hard not to. Like, it feels like a bit like a kid at Christmas. Even if you've seen these same breasts a million times, you feel like a kid, like, oh my God, it's just what I wanted. Those, perfect. Look at those. And I don't know why. They don't really do anything. It's like the flowers. What do the flowers really do? They smell nice for a couple of days, then you got to throw them out. But it's something about it, like something, that intoxication. If you can keep that, I think, in relationships, like, that's the good stuff. Like, why would you let it go away? It's so low percentage of a move. Like, to me, big investment with big risk. Okay, I get it. People are risk adverse. Or small investment with unlikely success. Okay, I get it. Maybe people don't want to, fail. But like, if you leave your partner a note in the morning, it was so fun hanging out with you on the couch last night. I married the prettiest girl in the world. What does that take? 10 seconds. 10 seconds. What did it cost? Nothing. But what does it do? It's just saying, I see you. You're important to me. I want you to feel seen. I want you to feel heard. And this downward spiral that everyone who ends up in my office at some point starts and then gracefully finishes in a chair in front of my desk. It starts with, well, why should I do that? He didn't do this.
Yeah.
Like, why should I sleep with him? He's nothing but unfriendly to me. Well, why should I be friendly to her? All she does is dismisses everything I say. Like, and that's what I mean when I say, well, like, okay, you're both right. Like, you don't owe each other anything. By the way, you don't even have to be married. So don't be married. But at some point you went, yep, 8 billion choices. That's the one I want. And so why wouldn't you water that plant? Like, why wouldn't you just take that? Because that spiral starts to work in the other direction. Like, even if you kind of lost the plot, like, you can get it back, but it's a little bit of a slow process. And the hard part is just like getting back in shape when you've fallen out of shape. It's like, you don't go back into the gym for 4 hours and go, okay, this is great. Like, you'll be so sore the next day, you'll never be able to move and it won't accomplish much. But do 20 minutes a day for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And you'll start to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's the same thing. Just start those little gestures and see if that reconnection starts to happen and it starts to feed the other person, inspire them into do. Because I'll tell you something, I feel like, and I haven't tested the theory, if you sent more flowers, you'd get more nudes. If you gave more nudes, you might get more flowers. Like, I don't know which came first, the flowers or the nudes, the chicken or the egg. But I'm telling you, like, there's something to be said for this. There's something to be said for kind words and blowjobs. There's something to be said for it. Because I don't know which comes first, but I'll tell you right now, you do one, you'll probably get the other more often. So I feel like there's value in that. And it's the part we don't say out loud. We say dumb shit like happy wife, happy life.
It's a terrible line.
It's a terrible line that everybody says at the wedding. Like the uncle who says it at the wedding, I should pay him a dividend. He's like, hey, he made a lot of money from me. But it really is. I mean, if anything, it should be happy spouse, happy house. But even that, if your meaning is, yeah, just like do what they want you to do, like just make them happy, like whatever it is, like no, like that is not a recipe for success in this coupling that is supposed to be the paramount connection you have with another person.
But you know what is interesting is you talk a lot about infidelity in affairs. And
Yeah.
a couple of the ways you talk about them were fascinating to me, which is you said affairs almost never start with sex.
Yeah.
What do they actually
They start with
with?
attention. Attention. I think they start the way relationships start, which is you're interested and you're interesting. Which is something that very quickly can go away in marriage. Like, because you've heard each other's stories, you've heard each other's jokes, you kind of, you know each other, you know what to expect. That's, by the way, it's part of the joy of being married is it's like, oh, I know what this person's going to, like, I know what they think's funny and what they don't. And I kind of like, the world is so mysterious and challenging and we have so little control that like knowing someone's levers, like I know what makes them feel good. I know what makes them smile. I know what food they like. Like, that's a nice feeling. But there is something exciting about the mystery of another person and being interesting to someone. Because I don't think love is just about how I feel about you. It's how you and what you feel about me makes me feel about me, right? Yeah. Like there's something about when your partner looks at you like, wow, look at you, that you look at yourself like, yeah, look at me, you know? And it's kind of like your grandma saying, like, looking at the old version of herself and going, oh my God, look at how good you looked. Like, look at how good I looked. Like, there's something about seeing yourself through the eyes of this person who sees you with desire and excitement and fascination. Like, fascination, it's pretty hard to have fascination for someone you've been with for a decade and who, like, you've cleaned up their socks, you know? Like, it's hard. Like, no one's a hero to their butler, you know? And so it really is about, like, how do I still keep this sense of, like, excitement and fascination? Because an affair, it usually starts as some other kind of interaction. It starts as our kids are on the same softball team or you know, and social media, by the way, like if we were going to invent an infidelity generating machine, it would be called Instagram.
Wait, why?
Because it's putting us in touch with a bunch of people that we probably have no business really talking to.
Yeah.
It's giving us benign, neutral points of entry that we have no reason to feel guilty about at all. Because it's like, no, I'm talking to I added this person because our kids are on the same team or our kids are in the same, or we work together. But now I see you in a bikini. You know, and I wasn't going to see you in a bikini before Instagram. That wouldn't have happened, you know? I wouldn't have seen you out with your girlfriends wearing something low cut. Like, I wouldn't have started seeing you in this different setting as an object potentially of desire. And by the way, I don't know about your experience of social media, but mine is everyone's posting their greatest hits while we live our gag reel. And no one is in the height moments of their life, like when they're having a wonderful time, taking out their phone and scrolling through Instagram. So it's always when you're like bored or like on the toilet or like sitting and waiting in the waiting room at the doctor's office or on the subway. It's like some moment of kind of, eh. And what are you doing in that moment? But looking at the most exciting, curated, perfect, filtered version of everyone else's life. So of course, your life in that moment sucks compared to that. So now I'm seeing this idealized, stylized version of this other person. And we have some interaction, and it's benign interaction. We can message each other and like, oh yeah, oh, I see you guys. How was that? Where did you guys stay when you were in Greece? And then it's very easy to have like that little, because again, no one's watching. Like you're not posting it on the Facebook wall. These are DMs. So you're doing the like, you know, like, wow, you look great, you know, you know, and it turns into, okay, now we're flirting, but we're just flirting. It's no big deal. And then that's how it starts because it starts to feel really good. Like it feels really good. Because of who you feel like. Like you feel interesting again. You feel interested again. And that's what it's about. Like it's about that. It's not about the sex. Like it really isn't about the sex. Yes, of course, sex is an important piece of things. And sex, I think, is the glue in marriages. Otherwise, just be roommates. Yeah. But like sex is glue. And without that glue, like, yeah, you start to, you know, there starts to be some distance from each other in terms of like, you are not the thing I align with sexuality. Same thing, pornography has the same effect for men. If like 90% of your sexual outlet is women on a screen you will never meet and not your primary sexual partner, you're going to have issues with that. It's one of the reasons why I've said, and again, I'm not trying to be like the proponent of nudes here, but you know, if your spouse is the kind of person who's a very visual person and otherwise would be very into pornography or you have to spend extended periods of time away from each other, having some nudes of your primary sexual partner and having them and looking at them as your, I don't think that that's a bad thing. Like you want to be the object of your partner's desire and you want to be the primary association they make with sexuality is you. So again, what happens in these other relationships? It starts with just an interested connection, a benign, safe connection, and then it just turns into something different.
It's probably why you're such a voice to this generation about marriage, because you're so straight talking. It's almost like we're not allowed to say these things
I know,
anymore.
People say that about, they're always like, he's so blunt. He's so blunt.
And you're like, no, it's pretty actually
it seems
obvious
like really obvious.
and rational.
Yeah.
But we're just told that's politically incorrect. No, we just don't talk about those things anymore. And so because of that, we have all these narratives that really do not help us progress in
Well, I have a safe
marriage.
place that I can do it from, because in a world where it's very easy to get canceled, and where therapists come in or researchers come in and say, well, this is what my research has shown, or this is what I've studied. I'm just telling you who's sitting in front of me in the chair. Yeah. And like, you can't pretend they meant to be there. They didn't. And you can't be like, well, but you don't really know. No, I do. Like, people lie to their therapists all the time. They don't lie to their divorce lawyer. Like, there's absolutely no profit in lying to your divorce lawyer. If anything, you got to tell me all your stuff. And by the way, it's protected by attorney-client privilege. Like, I've never once told any client confidence in any public setting. Like, I take my oath as an attorney very seriously. I anonymize everything that I talk about publicly. And the truth is, like, yeah, but I get to see a really honest version of this. And people talk to me about, like, you get to know your divorce lawyer. Like, we have a really intimate relationship in that you have to be really honest with me. And I get to know your finances and your kids and your parenting and your substance use issues and your mental health issues and your whole family history. So I get to know you really well. And in 25 years of getting to know people that well, like, you really see human emotional complexity. Because I've represented the cheated on. And I've represented the cheater. Mm-hmm. And I've represented victims of domestic violence and intimate partner abuse. And I've represented perpetrators of domestic violence and intimate partner abuse. And I have to tell you, you spend enough time with people and you figure out, like, okay, these are hurt people hurting people. And they did not set out to do that. Mm-hmm. And if only there were just evil people and we could just sequester them from the good people. But it's not true. Like, the line of good and evil runs right through the human heart. And none of us wants to cut a piece of our own heart out. And so when you spend time with people and start to realize, like, hey, like, horns and halos isn't really a thing. Like, people have moments. Like, I'm sure if I looked at the best moment of you as a wife, I would, and said, that's what kind of wife she is, I'm giving you way too much credit.
Way too much.
And if I look at the most impatient crap moment you've had as a spouse, where you just really missed it.
Not good.
And I said, that's who she is as a wife, I am not giving you enough credit. The truth is, it's kind of about, like, ratios. It's kind of about how it works. And I think that's what I get to see, is when it's failed catastrophically. And that gives me the ability to just go, look, don't get mad at me. That's how it is.
You know, I feel like I know a lot about this because I watched your new favorite show, which is the Kardashians show about divorce attorneys.
How did you make it through the first episode of that fever dream of a show? I like everything Ryan Murphy has ever done. I'm such a devotee of every American Horror Story. That show made my eyes bleed.
I think you are missing the brilliance. The camp.
You know what?
The camp
That's a fact. I am absolutely missing any scintilla of brilliance. I actually see it as a brilliance black hole. Like, it is the event horizon of brilliance. It's gone.
Watching you watch the vagina entryway part was just, that's
There's a line in the
me.
first episode where they say, Kim Kardashian's character says to one of the other people, come work with us. In 2 years, you'll be a multimillionaire. And I went, in divorce law? Like, in divorce, you think in 2 years you're going to be a multi-millionaire in divorce law? By the way, with offices like that. And she also, too, is like, Kim Kardashian's character is driving a Bentley, I'm sorry, are you in venture capital? Like, what are you in? Because divorce, like, listen, we're not wearing sackcloth and ashes. We're doing all right. But, like, there's only a certain number of hours in the day I can bill. And there's only so many, like, I'd have a bunch of lawyers working for me, but they're not me. So people eventually would go, where's Jim? I hired him. Like, if I'm going, no, I'm not your lawyer. I know you hired me, but here's Bob. He's going to be your lawyer. Like, people eventually get very mad about that. Like, if your therapist said, I'm not going to be your therapist this week, I have Steve. He's come in. He's going to do it. Good. You'd be like, yeah, we're not doing that, you know?
No.
So I just don't know. Maybe they could have just spoken to, like, one actual divorce lawyer and made some aspect of it with the all-star amazing cast that they have.
I loved it so much.
I told really
I know, is that I'm a terrible person, but I
gotta leave. I'm sorry.
I know.
I've never walked off of the show.
Favorite part, I think I'm a Kim Kardashian stan now. Like, which is not something young Cody would have said.
I got no beef with Kim Kardashian. I really don't.
Because you were her divorce attorney.
I really don't. No, I was
times.
not her divorce attorney. She's California. I think she had Laura. Laura Wasser's amazing and a beloved colleague and a super talent. No, I think that she's
amazing at outrage, though. I think she planned it all.
Maybe.
Like, even her, she did this post that I was like, God, the internet fascinates me, like psychology of how people engage on the internet. And in the same way, like I find you fascinating because you seem to feed off of, when people get amped, you're like, nah, it doesn't fucking bother me.
Yeah.
And I think she's like that on the internet. When people get amped, she's like, oh,
well,
fucking
listen,
money.
that entire family has figured out how to leverage, people's emotional state into something very profitable.
Yeah.
I don't want to try to, be an armchair psychologist of Kim. But what I will say is I have a son who's 28 years old and he's a lawyer. And I'd never pushed him to be a lawyer. I really was find something you love as much as I love what I do. Because I'm blessed to be one of those rare people that does not spend 5 days a week looking forward to 2. Yeah. Like I can't wait to get back to work. I love it. And I get the feeling that because her father was a phenomenal attorney. Her father was an amazing attorney. I mean, he's legendary in the legal profession as his skill as a trial lawyer. Yeah, he's a criminal defense lawyer. But he was an incredibly gifted courtroom lawyer. Those are big, it's a big shadow that man casts. So my heart really goes out to her because I didn't know her father, but I can't imagine that he would not be incredibly proud of her. Yeah. Like she is such a successful business person. She's a mom. She's so many things so well. Yeah. But I think there is still this piece that goes, yeah, but I want to be a lawyer because it would be like something he'd be proud of. And so if that's what this comes from, is this desire to keep taking the bar and trying and da-da-da, I'm cheering for her. I'm cheering for her. I hope she pulls it out. But I don't think she needs to do it to have her father be proud of her. I think he's probably incredibly proud of her. I say that as a father.
I know. It goes back to your big heart. I mean, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was prenups. Speaking of famous people. Prenups. There was a video I saw where you gave Taylor Swift some advice pre-Travis Kelce, which was one word a lot of times repeated.
Yep. Taylor. Prenup Taylor.
Tell me, obviously, do you think everybody should get a prenup?
Yeah. Well, I'll take it a step further. Everybody has a prenup. Everybody has a prenup. It's either one that the government wrote, or it's one that you and the person that you've decided you like other than the 8 billion other options. Who do you think's better at it? Have you been to the DMV? You ever walk into the DMV and go, oh yeah, these people should be in charge of everything. Like, this is great. Like I've never been in any government office and went, oh yeah, these people, let's put them in charge of everything. Like, if you don't do a prenup, you've decided that the state legislature of the state in which you reside, at the time you divorce, okay? So not even the current government, a future government you haven't met yet, they'll do a better job than you and your partner. That's insane. Whether you're on the left or the right or the unhappy middle. I think we can all agree in the last 10 years, both sides of the political fence have said the government sucks, right? In 2016, the left was like, the government sucks. 2020, the right was like, the government sucks. Like everybody suddenly, okay. So can we all agree then that signing up for a contract, because that's all marriage is, a contract, okay? You're signing a contract. Unlike, by the way, every other contract you ever sign, as a business person, get it in paper, sign contracts. Yes, handshake deals are important, principles are important.
No, terrible.
Get lawyers involved, you put things on paper, okay?
100%.
All right, and you put them on paper while you're getting along. Yeah. You don't go, well, my partner and I, we get along so good, we don't need to do that. Every business that fails and has the ugliest courtroom battle, it's because we were friends and we trust each other. We don't need to write things down. And then when it goes wrong, and when it's successful, that's when it falls apart. That's when everyone goes, well, wait a minute, we'd agreed to that, but that was when that. So you get it in writing while you're getting along. Okay, so are you going to say the state legislature in the future, I trust them so much that I'm going to say whatever rules they think are fair, I agree to. And by the way, if they change the rules, I'm okay with that too, and I can't opt out of the contract. Like like a simple contract is a car lease. So let's say you lease a Porsche. And halfway through the lease, they go, by the way, your payment's staying the same, but now we're giving you a Honda Civic. You would be like, well, no, then I'm out of this contract. Well, imagine if they could say, yeah, sorry, you can't opt out of the contract. We can change the contract, but you can't change the contract, and you're in the contract no matter what. Yeah. Well, that's what you're doing if you marry without a prenup. So I think the reason why prenups are so dramatically on the rise now.
Are they?
Absolutely.
Like what percentage of people get a prenup?
It's very hard to say because prenups are not filed anywhere. They're only filed when they're filed as part of a divorce. And when they're filed as part of a divorce, they're in a sealed matrimonial file. And people lie about prenups because I will tell you, I represent a lot of celebrities and athletes, and I have more than once been watching, Access Hollywood or Entertainment Tonight, and they're interviewing a celebrity who's getting married, and they go, "So did you guys do a prenup?" And they go, "Oh no, we don't need a prenup." I'm like, "You're lying. It's in my safe. Like, it's in my safe. You signed it at my conference table 2 days ago. Why are you telling people you don't have a prenup?" Because I understand why. Because it's this like, no, that's how much we love each other, is we just trust that we're never going to get divorced. Like, which, by the way, again, I tell people, because I represent a lot of people in finance because I'm a divorce lawyer in New York City. I always tell people, don't look at marriage like gambling or like buying a stock. Because a stock, if you invest $1 million, it can go to zero. Getting married is like shorting stocks. Like there's no amount, there's no stop loss. Like it's just like they could change the law anytime and really screw you and you can't get out of it. So there is so much value, in my opinion. What's happening with younger people, they're pragmatic. When I say younger, I mean in their 20s, their 30s, the demographic that's getting married. They're just starting to say pragmatically, like, yeah, we got. By the way, all of my colleagues, we all see a dramatic increase in the number of prenups that we're doing. And then it's also getting easier to do prenups. One of the ventures I'm involved in is trustedprenup.com. And what we did is we basically used like AI, we used large language model, and several hundred prenups that I've done in various financial situations. We fed into this thing.
That's brilliant.
And we created basically
like a
online kind of choose your own adventure of how to do a prenup. We guarantee its airtight ability, its enforceability. And we basically say valid in all 50 states. And we make it affordable to people. We've democratized prenups.
What does it cost?
$599 is the price point for it. If you want to have attorney review, meaning that you want to have an attorney licensed in the state in which you reside, review it for you, and also have one for your spouse, it's still under $2,000.
That's incredible.
To put that in perspective, the retainer most divorce lawyers take for drafting a prenup is $15,000.
Oh, I remember.
So yeah, so it's a much, much cleaner, easier way of doing it. And again, do I still think the old-fashioned way of going and hiring an attorney and having your question answered? I think that's a great way to do it. But the way we did it on trustedprenup.com is I've counseled so many hundreds of people on prenups. We just made all these little videos of me answering the most common questions that people have about their prenup. And at each stage along the way, when you're trying to decide which option to take, you can watch a video of me answering that question. So it's a way to just sort of make this scalable. And again, we did it really to democratize prenups because everyone has a prenup. Again, it's either one that's written by the government or it's one that's written by these two people. And to me, that's a no-brainer.
So good. What is the craziest prenup you've ever seen?
I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy prenups. I will say two. One of them I've talked about before, and that is there was a prenup where for every 10 pounds she gained during the marriage, she lost $10,000 a month in alimony.
Holy shit.
And it was enforceable. That was the funniest thing, is that a court upheld it. And the judge who upheld it, who was female, said, I want to say, I don't know why you married this man. What? This is a boorish clause. It's disgusting, but it's a contract and the two of you signed it and you had a lawyer and he had a lawyer and it's enforceable. So it was upheld. Now, I'd tell you, here's why lawyers are weird. I mean, it's one of the many reasons. But when I read the provision, I remember thinking, oh, I could work with this. Because if I was her, like you have to have a baseline weight.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, just like put like pennies in your pockets and wear your heaviest clothes. And then if you get divorced, be like a pro fighter, like wear the sweatsuit, be in the sauna, get butt naked on the scale and like strip it down as much as you can. But here's what I'll tell you. There was something honest about that prenup because he was an ogreish fellow and he had a lot of money and she was beautiful and didn't really bring much else to the table. And I think they were honest about the economy of that relationship because I think relationships are an economy. I don't think that's a dirty word. I think that if an economy is an exchange of value, then, you marry someone because there's an exchange of value. You give value, you receive value. And what value is worth what is a very subjective concept between those two people. And it's very hard to quantify, like, oh, how much is this worth or that worth? So that's the most crazy prenup I ever saw. I see a lot of prenups where people make insane demands. I'm seeing a lot of it lately, and I'm seeing it more with women, where women are, because I do a lot of prenups for guys in finance. So they're in their 30s or 40s, and they've got, 10 million, 20 million. And they're marrying like a yoga teacher, or they're marrying like someone who just does not have the assets that they have, and is usually beautiful and brings that to the table, and more fun than them because they've had their head down and been, you've been at Goldman, they got their
Not
head
fun.
down and they're doing their thing. They're working the hours. And, the men very quickly are like, I want her to waive everything. Like, unless it's in her name, like if it's in my name, it's mine. If it's in joint names, okay, we'll split it 50-50. If it's in her name, it's hers, but nothing. She gets nothing. No alimony, no anything. And I have seen a lot more women now say, okay, like I'll do a prenup, but I have some things I'm going to want.
Yeah.
Like I want in the marriage and some things if the marriage ends. Because you can put in a prenup some of the things that we want in the marriage too. So I've had women that are like, oh, I want a push present if we have kids of no less value than this. I want this many vacations of no less value than this. I want a monthly personal appearance allowance that'll like cover like things I want for my self-care. And they're being very pragmatic about it. Wow. And there's a little more pushback. And I think that that's an interesting thing to me. I actually don't, there are probably some people that would be judgmental about that transaction, but I really do think, at the risk of getting misty-eyed about it, that I don't think you can feel loved if you don't feel safe. And I think a prenup is about both people feeling safe. Yeah. Like, I'll give, but do I have to give everything? Like, will I get my legs chopped out from under me? And, I need security. Like, I need security. If you're going to be the breadwinner and I'm going to be a supportive other, and I'm going to like diminish my lifetime earning capacity by not pursuing other ventures, or I'm going to give you my skinny years, or I'm going to, whatever it is, like I need some security. And I think a rational person who wants their partner to feel safe would go, okay, I get that. So what is it? Like, what's the answer? I don't know that the answer is half of everything I have, but there's probably an answer we can come to. And I think just having that conversation is potentially an opportunity for us to like talk about some important things in this relationship and what we mean to each other and what we owe each other.
It's a good point, because I've seen a lot of, so I went through I'm almost 40 now, I'm 39. And I remember like my first round of friends who all got married, and we lived in Dallas, and most of us got divorced. Yeah. And for whatever reason, we all got married kind of young. And I was the first one. Yeah. And then they would call me later, and kind of be like, how does it happen? So you talk to a divorce attorney. How much does that cost? What do I do with the finances? Yeah. I was probably one of the only ones that worked, and I made the money then. Yeah. And so they didn't know where any of the money was. Yeah. There was a lot of hidden stuff for them. Mm-hmm. The men obviously felt like I did all the work, but they felt like they had all the babies because it was Dallas, so everybody was having babies. Yeah. And there was like this massive amount of fear, I think, on both sides, which seems like it's not good for divorce, because when you're both scared, then you do crazy things. Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder how much better many of them would have been if they would have said the quiet part out loud first.
I think all of them would have been better. I think premarital education would have been really good for everybody. Like all of the people that talk about, oh, no-fault divorce is bad for our culture because it makes it too easy to get divorced. Like, I don't believe that for a second. But I think if you actually want to change the divorce rate, we have to create barriers to entry.
Ooh.
Like, I can't get a driver's license without taking a written test, passing a vision test, then passing a road test, then having a probationary license for a certain period of time. Marriage, $50, Elvis will marry you in Nevada. Like, that's it. Like, you don't get a pamphlet. You just did the most legally significant thing you're going to do other than die. And you didn't get a pamphlet. Like, the first time most people learn what legally happened when they got married is when they're getting divorced. Like, you don't have to be a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to tell somebody the worst time to learn how to fight is when you're in a fight. Yeah. Like, if I asked your husband, when's the best time to learn how to shoot a gun? Is it when I'm in a gunfight? No, that's the worst possible time. Like, literally, any time in your entire life prior to that moment would have been a good time to learn, right? So why don't we just have some basic premarital education? Why don't we have some sense of, hey, by the way, you're opting out of the title system. Your estate rights have automatically changed on both the state and federal level when you got married. Like, most people have no idea. So why not? Like, why not have everyone has to spend 1 hour with a divorce lawyer before they can get a marriage license? That seems very fair to me. Like, it seems like something that would be useful for people, because at least that way they'll know, take this thing seriously. And I know what my downside risk is. And look, I think one of the beautiful things about being in a relationship, in my opinion, is the ability that you're not doing all of it yourself. You know, like maybe you like to cook and I like doing dishes, you know, or maybe you don't mind taking the dogs out and I don't mind doing the laundry. Like, and there's this sense of like, hey, like, let's both figure out what it is. But here's the thing. You should know how to do laundry. Like, I'm not saying, like, if I don't mind doing laundry and you don't really like doing laundry, cool, I'll do laundry. Like, if you like, let me tell you something. We were in a relationship. You can handle the finances. Knock yourself out. You're better at it than me. I'm a good lawyer. I'm not a great businessman. Perfect. Here you go. You're in charge of that. I trust you enough. You're in charge. Okay. But I should know where the accounts are. I know. I should have some basic, we should have a meeting once a month where we go, okay, babe, so you remember this is all here. And remember I invested in this and here's what's going on with that. And just so you know, God forbid something happens to me, you'll know where everything was. But again, there's this sense that like, no, it's like Voldemort. If we say it out loud, if we say like, well, what if we ever split up? Or what if one of us died? Oh, no. By the way, one of those two things is definitely going to happen. Like, one of you is going to die, or you're going to get divorced. Definitely. Guaranteed. Like, you're both going to die. Definitely. That's just reality. So why not just say, hey, we need to both know how to do some things. Like if you don't like to cook, I'm not saying you have to learn to cook if you're going to be in a relationship, but like, your partner's going to be away sometimes. You have to know how to like, okay, I know how to like scramble an egg, or I know how to do some basic
Girl
thing.
dinner. Yeah.
Something, some bachelor dinner, like learn how to make some little thing, you know, because again, otherwise, you're creating a situation where there's this imbalance of power that I don't think is good. I don't think it's healthy long term.
When you talk to a judge, do you talk like that?
No.
You're really calm.
No, I have to do a whole character. Yeah. No, you have
What's
to do.
the character?
Well, here's what's funny. You know, like there's a saying that fame is the mask that eats into the wearer.
Oh,
like
that's a bar.
Some of these people know me now. So like I give them a little more Sexton.
Yeah.
I get to be
like,
a little
this
more.
Is you.
Yeah, this is me. And I get to be a little more me.
Yeah.
It's a very polished up, non-profane version of me. But there's it depends on the judge. Like I'll tell you, a good lawyer knows the law, a great lawyer knows the judge. And like I know which judges like enjoy the Sexton show. Right. So there's some judges when I'm trying cases, I can pull some shit. You know, like I can do the show and like they don't want the steak, they want the sizzle. And then there's some judges that they know that I'm a showman and they're expecting that and they don't like it. So they don't get that. They get the very, if it may please the court, Your Honor, you know, and at the end of the day, like, yes, I have this very performative streak and I'm a trial lawyer and trial lawyers are closet hacks. Like we all want to be like, you know, comedians or actors, but I am a law geek to the core. Like I love this job. I study the appellate division decisions as they come out. Like I know my trade.
Wow.
And I love what I do. And I know the law. And I've memorized most of Black's Law Dictionary. Like I like hearsay is a statement made by the declarant other than one by testifying at trial or other proceeding offered into evidence to prove the truth of the matter asserted. Like I have it all in here. But I still like to put on the show. But at the end of the day, like if the show's not going to work, okay. Like and that's what's interesting about this profession is people will come into my office. It's the only job where someone will come into your office and go, "I heard you're a ruthless son of a bitch." And they mean it as a compliment. So true. Like I was described by New York Magazine as the sociopath you want on your side. Now, I get misty-eyed talking about dogs. I'm clearly not a sociopath. But it's like sometimes that's the task, right? Mm-hmm. Like the task is like there's cases where I need to be like the ruthless, sadistic person who's going to cross-examine you to death. And then there are cases where like my job is to be conciliatory and friendly and keep the energy of it, you know, in a calm place. And, you know, there's a saying I memorized years ago from Reese's, because people used to say to me, like, how do you represent Like, how do you like eviscerate someone on cross-examination? Like, how do you go at someone the way you have to as a lawyer sometimes? And I think anyone who's ever been in the military and had to be in combat, or anyone who's ever had to like do things that feel like harsh or amoral or immoral. There's a line from Rhesus Sardonicus where he said, I've resigned myself to temporary complicity with evil in order to accomplish certain specific objectives for people whose suffering is more important than my need to maintain moral purity. Oof. And so I feel like in my line of work, I don't have a need to maintain moral purity. Like, I represent the good guy, I represent the bad guy. Like, I'm a weapon, and you point the weapon. And a weapon in the hands of someone who's a good person can protect and save. And a weapon in the hands of a villain is a very dangerous thing. But I'm the weapon. And I don't always believe in the client. But I don't just represent the client, I represent the system.
100%.
And I always believe in the system. Like, I think our legal system is a good legal system. It's got problems. Like, we have the worst legal system except for all the other ones, you know? And I believe in it. And I think you get to be part of justice happening.
Yeah, it's interesting. My husband always says this line from Ender's Game, which is
great book
about war. Yeah, and how we will debate the morals of war after we've won it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
In
well, and I think your husband would understand what I consider to be, you know, the world needs bad men. We keep the other bad men from the door.
I think that's true.
And I think that that's something what what we have to do. And I think that a lot of the first 20 years of my profession was about becoming a weapon in a courtroom and honing that craft and honing that skill. And about 5 or 6 years ago, because I wake up at 4 a.m. every day and it's really quiet, I just started writing the book just as sort of something to do, to use a different muscle. And I started to write this sort of like reverse how-to book. It was like a how not to screw up your marriage. And I suddenly like had a book. I found I'd written a book. Like like if you write a page a day, in a year you got a book, you know? And I remember thinking, oh, this is a completely different thing. Like, and I wonder if this will hurt the world's perception of me as this like weapon and as this, and I'm very happy to say it hasn't.
No. Tell them the title in the UK again. I really like
the title. Yeah, so the title in the US is How to Stay in Love, Practical Wisdom from an Unlikely Source. And in the UK, which is why I love the UK, is How to Not Fuck Up Your Marriage. Which I thought...
I like it better.
I like it better.
Yeah,
I like it better.
But I do like this cover a lot too. And I think one of the interesting parts too, I've met, like, we have a dear friend whose name is Roy Altman, and he is one of the youngest, I'm going to get it wrong. He's a judge in Florida. Okay. And I think one day potentially will be on the Supreme Court. And he is an appointed judge.
Okay.
Federal judge.
Okay.
And anyway, his memory recall of both the law and quotes and scripts reminds me a lot of you in
amazing.
A different way.
It's a wild thing.
It's a weird skill you guys have. But it's in the book too, and in your quotes, which is this interweaving of 25 years of experience from being an attorney, but also this like double life you have of reading all of these laws continuously. Yeah. And then, I mean, I have to assume that you're a big, you've mentioned a few poets.
Oh yeah. No, I read constantly. I love literature. I love poetry. I love film. I love art. I've always been a person who loved to travel and to sort of take in things from other cultures. So I think that everything I do is infused. Like my Brazilian jiu-jitsu, my interest in feudal Japan and sort of the ideas of like, you know, Bushido and the warrior code and things like that, that infuses my practice. Like my undergraduate degree in psychology and my interest in Carl Jung, my interest in psychedelics, like all of the things that these have all infused what it is that I do. My upbringing, I was raised very religious. I was raised very dogmatically Catholic, and then went all the other way and became a total atheist, and then somehow found myself back in like this happy agnostic middle place. I think that all of it infuses, you know, the way that I think how you do anything's how you do everything. I mean, I really do. I think that if we bring the fullness of ourself to whatever the task is, it's going to be infused with all the best parts of us. So
it's so good. What is your favorite just as like this is a curious question for Cody, not even for anybody listening, but like you've mentioned a few poets and a few fiction books. Like what are your favorites? What's your favorite poem of all time?
My favorite poem of all time.
Is it the Brodsky?
Probably would be a song by Joseph Brodsky. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful poem.
That's number one.
Yeah, I love that one. Gosh, of poems, I think Allen Ginsberg, some of his poems are incredible. There are, I would say, "Let It Enfold You" by Charles Bukowski.
Love Bukowski.
Yeah, so I would say probably my two favorite poems, other than a song by Joseph Brodsky, would be "Bluebird" by Bukowski and "Let It Enfold You." "Let It Enfold You," I think is. I still can't get all the way through "Bluebird" without crying.
Get out.
Like if I read "Bluebird" out loud, I get halfway through it and start crying.
Oh, mine is "On Writing" by Bukowski. Have you read that one?
That's
fucking that kill, especially as an author. That line about like the libraries of the world have yawned themselves to sleep by another book as a business card. You're just like, fuck, you're right. Don't write a shitty book.
But it's interesting. You like cynical Bukowski.
Yeah,
and I like "This world has exhausted me and somehow I haven't given up," Bukowski. Like "Let It Enfold You" is about like how broken he was and he still found beauty in the world. And "Bluebird's" about that too. So those are my two favorite poems.
But I don't think "On Writing" is cynical by Bukowski, because the last line's about like, either it'll die inside you or you'll die if you don't write it. And like,
no,
so
it's meant to
right?
be inspirational. It's not
But
cynical.
he was also a psychopath too. Like, some of his stuff.
I mean, some of the greatest artists, I think, are in all genius, there's madness. I mean, I've represented some of these people in their divorces, some musicians that are incredibly gifted and they're really disturbed people. But authors, I mean, I would say, I think the book that I find most powerful to me is "All the Light We Cannot See" by Anthony Doerr. I think that's a beautiful book because I think what it's about isn't what it's about. I think it's about like, what does it mean to be human and love and the complex nature of human beings. I just read an amazing book by an author named Jason Green. It's a pretty new book. It's called Unworld. Arguably, it's about like artificial intelligence, but it's really not. It's about grief and loss and love. It's still in hardcover. It's a brand new book. I bought it as like on a whim. Anthony Jeselnik recommended it, and I was like, I'll get it. And I bought it, and I was going to Vegas just for like to play blackjack and have a nice like fun weekend. And I'm sitting by the pool at the Palazzo crying.
Yeah, that was gonna say that.
Like crying like a little like because there's some passages in it that are just so well written that I would get mad at it because I was like, I'll never write anything that good. But also like some of it is just it's so moving of a book. It's just about like what is consciousness? What does it mean to love someone and lose them? And I'm sitting by the pool at the Palazzo, like really like tears coming down my face, trying to like look like, oh no, I'm just, I got sunscreen in my eyes. But it was so Unworld by Jason Green. That would be another one. But I mean, poetry has always spoken to me. My mother was very moved by beauty, and I was very lucky for that. I'm thinking about her a lot today because it was 10 years today. And whenever I think about her, the longer that she's gone, the more I see the pieces of me that are born of her, because those pieces are like the only way I get to see her now. And something about her that was so amazing that I didn't understand when I was a kid is how she would just be moved to tears by things. Like she'd be singing along with a song and just start crying. And I, as a kid, I was like, what's the matter? Did you skin your knee? What are you doing? And it was just that she's like, oh, it's just so pretty. And I would find myself going like, oh, wow, okay. And that was okay, And I never let the experience of being a man beat that out of me.
Yeah, to still have the ability to have
to still be moved by beauty. I would cry from beauty much more than I ever cry from pain, And so I think poetry is still a way to deeply connect to that.
With this book, who do you hope reads it and what do you hope they take away?
Gosh, there's a whole bunch of people I hope read it. I hope that people who are just getting into relationships read it because I think it could give them some skills that they can use early on. because I think it's a whole lot easier to stay in good shape than it is to get super heavy and then try to lose all the weight. So I think like it's a whole lot easier to like stay in love than it is to be in love, let it fall apart, neglect it, and then try to find your way back. But I hope that some people find it who maybe are starting that slide and say, okay, is there a way to turn this thing around? I hope some people who are way down deep in that valley of it will read it and either realize, okay, that maybe there's a path, or okay, there isn't. Because I think, you know, you and I have both found in our lives that sometimes happily ever after means happily ever after separately. And that, you know, the barn burns down and now I can see the moon, you know, like, and I think that, you know, you are the sum of all of these things, you know, and as two people who divorced and then found love after our divorce. And even my ex-wife, she's been remarried for 15 years to an amazing guy. Our oldest son just got married a couple of months ago, and we're all at the wedding together. And I'll tell you a funny story. We're sitting at the wedding together, and my now daughter-in-law, they were law school sweethearts, my son, and she's this brilliant lawyer, and she's beautiful, and she's smart. She's just an amazing young woman. And they wrote their own vows. And so my son, you know, gave his vows, and they were very lovely. He has some of his dad's performance skills. And but he's more intelligent. He's more like academic and wonky. And then she started her vows. I'm going to try to get through this without getting misty-eyed. And she's like, you know, you're the strongest man I know. You make me feel so safe. Like you're. And I was like, oh shit. Like I taught him the cow says moo. Like I had some piece in that. Like, and this was the goal. Like this was the goal, to make that kind of man that a woman that amazing would feel that way about. And so she's reading these vows, and all of a sudden, you know, just that's it. You know, tears start pouring out of me. And my niece who's sitting next to me, like very subtly, hands me a tissue, you know, and I thank you. And my ex-wife who's sitting next to me, who I'm still friendly with, leans over and goes, "You're such a fucking pussy." And I was like, yep, that's my life. That's my life right there.
You need both, to
You
be
do.
honest.
Yeah. It was like the
do.
real yin and the yang.
You got him.
Yeah. It was amazing. It was an amazing moment. And I told my son about it later. He's like, yep, that's mom. That's mom.
I feel like I kind of like her.
Yeah, she's great. Oh, I do too. Please, what am I? There's a lot of people I love I wouldn't want to be married to.
Oh, same.
She would say that about me. She was like, oh, Jim's
100%.
great in the rearview mirror. Like he's a great co-parent. I'm a great ex-husband. By the way, the skill set for an ex-husband, the resume for an ex-husband, totally different than for a husband. Like I'm bad at husband. Husband, I have to be like, tell me about your day. Oh, really? Like I'm not. I'm like, come on, we got to land this plane. Like, let's go. Come on, I got to like skip to the end, you know? And but ex-husband, reliable, punctual, reliable when it comes to the kids. The check shows up on time. Everything great. I was great at being an ex-husband.
I always joke with my husband. I'm like, nannies. I have a lot of rules when it comes to nannies.
Yeah.
And I want to end on this one, actually. I want to get your take on it.
Yeah.
And my two main rules are I have age and weight minimums. Okay. And they're pretty high.
They're pretty high.
Because I've seen what people do with their nannies.
Well, you know, there's a chapter in my book called Everyone's Fucking the Nanny.
Okay, it's true. So am I right?
Yeah.
Do age and weight minimums help?
Oh,
what are the
no,
real?
they don't help.
God damn it.
They don't help that much. I mean, definitely don't go for like the super hot Polish
the
nanny.
Brazilian
like bad idea.
pair?
No, terrible idea.
Absolutely not.
Well, I'll tell you two nanny stories very quickly.
Okay.
One is I tell in the book. There's a story about a guy. They hired a nanny. The husband decided to try to convince the nanny to have a threesome with he and the wife without telling the wife he was going to try to encourage her to do this. And then went to the wife and said, oh, the nanny wants to have a threesome with us. And the wife was like, I don't think we should do that. And the nanny was like, I don't think we should do that. And he was like, no, the other one wants this. And da-da. And he somehow convinced both of them. And so they ended up having a threesome. It would happen every couple of months. They'd have threesomes together. And then one night, wife is out and he says to the nanny, hey, she's not home. Why don't we, the two of us? And she's like, whoa, that wasn't the deal. The deal was I thought we were doing like a group thing. And he was like, oh, no, it's no big deal. She'd be fine with it. And the nanny a couple of weeks later says to the wife, by the way, the other night he approached me and said it would be okay with you. And the wife was like, yeah, that's not okay with me. The PS of the story, the wife left him for the nanny. And they lived happily ever after. Last time, this was like 12 years ago, they're still together.
That is the best karma I've ever heard in my whole life.
Yeah, so I was like, that is the risk of trying to convince the nanny to get involved in a threesome. But I talk about in the book what I call the nanny fascination. And I actually think that there's a fairly benign explanation for it. And that is that the nanny in some ways represents a lot of the aspects of the wife before you guys had kids. She has a life outside the home. She, has interests outside the home. She is still something of a mystery to you and you're a mystery to her. She likes the father because he's like the dad and it's kind of cool. And, and he's also, there's an economic aspect to their relationship that makes it very simple, that it's like, I pay you, you take care of the kids. And what I said, the solution to it is actually not hire really unattractive nannies, because there are some examples even of celebrities who have left for far less attractive people. There's a lot of celebrities who've left for nannies and a lot of non-celebrities who've left for nannies. I actually think the secret is a pretty easy one, and that is reclaim the parts of yourself that were part of the nanny. Like, I think that a woman, particularly when you have children, there's a tremendous temptation to spend a lot of your time and energy focused on your children, to take whatever time you have left over, focus it on your husband. And I think that there is tremendous value in really continuing to have the you, the me, and the we, and to take time to be yourself, like to do the yoga class, do the Pilates class, go out with the friends, join the book club, do whatever it is that made you uniquely you and kept you as something other than just a mom. Because being a mom is such an all-consuming task that, of course, it's understandable to say, I want to devote all of my attention and time to it. But there is tremendous value for you, for your spouse, for your kids, for the betterment of this ecosystem that is your home, in maintaining your connection to your true self and who you are independently of the family. So I think that's the lesson that can be learned from the nanny thing. But yeah, the nanny thing's a thing.
Knew it. This is so good.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with the nannies. So family member's always the best. Like I've only had a couple of divorces where someone was sleeping with someone's family member. I've done a few of those though. Cousins, sisters,
I'm
brothers.
just gonna have to not ask you some questions, because I don't want to know.
You know what's funny is I've been doing this so long that every once in a while, like I'll share with somebody like something that happened in a case, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And I'll go, "Oh, I guess that is weird." Yeah, but you just don't, to like it. I don't know. This is what I do.
No,
like you
so
just
true.
don't. Yeah, I navigate this weird world.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming today.
For having
I have
me. It's
loved
great to
going
see
down
you.
the rabbit hole. I want people to follow you on all the socials. I find your TikTok and Instagram to be fascinating.
Thanks.
I like the show that you're doing now too,
Thanks.
where
Better
you
Call Sexton.
where you have people ask you questions.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah.
And then obviously read the book, How to Stay in Love.
Appreciate it.
James, thanks for being
Great
here.
to see you. Absolutely. Thanks, Cody.